the sports you do and don't know, both within and surrounding Baltimore. Don't ask him about preseason games, oh no. Stuffing things in Griffin Basso. Despite it being on the internet, he can call it what he wants. So, Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Glenn Clark Radio. Duke sucks.
Good morning. It's a Thursday edition of Glenn Clark Radio, and the board is really long. I'm starting to think that maybe they don't understand the concept of maybe we should change. Maybe they're the goals are too lofty. Maybe it should be like
Win something.
run or two. Don't give up 1,000.
Well, I didn't give up 1,000.
Your guy, Dean Kramer. That's your guy.
He gave up 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an off day for Dean.
No, that's the thing. It really wasn't. It really was not. Hi, it's Glenn Clark
Well,
Radio.
he wasn't going to win regardless because.
Right, they didn't score any runs. I
Didn't score any
understand,
runs.
but that doesn't mean that you give up more.
Well, I mean, you might as well.
Oh,
He's getting them all out of the way.
getting them out of the way. That's a good point, right? If
Yeah.
there's one thing we can count
doesn't
on.
let up another run.
Yeah, for when?
For the next 4 days.
For the next 4 days. Somebody's got to start Sunday. I assume it's just going to be Charlie Morton because, that's what we need more of in our lives.
What's Ubaldo Jimenez up to? You think he can still pitch?
We just going to do that? We're just going to name old Orioles pitchers? Just going to do that, huh?
Andrew Kashner.
He was an Orioles pitcher. You're Alex Cobb.
He might still be rostered though. By
Is
somebody.
he?
I think he might be.
If you say
He
so.
definitely had a job last year.
Where was he last year?
Cleveland. I think
I
he might have
believe
been
you.
in San Francisco and then Cleveland.
I believe you. I don't remember. Appears
Um,
as though he's with the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah. See. Yeah,
So he's not available, you're saying.
yeah,
Well,
not
wait,
available.
maybe
So
is
that means
he?
I win.
He has not pitched for the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, because he's probably hurt or something.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
Sounds
like
about-
what Alex Cobb would do.
Sounds about right. He signed a 1 year. He signed the Charlie Morton contract. 1 year, $15 million for the
Wow.
Detroit Tigers. God, that is good work. That is such good work.
$15 million to not pitch.
Man, I know that it's not been a great time economically, but damn. Alex Cobb is making $15 million a year to not be good at baseball. I'm just not sure the economy is as terrible as you're making it out to be.
Chris Tillman, bring him back.
You really are. You're committed to this bit. Somebody pointed out yesterday on Twitter that Wei-Yin Chen recently retired.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, how about we change that?
Yeah, could be an option. All right. Hi.
Buy out Cole Irvin from Japan or KBO. Where is he?
Where did he
I
end
think he
up?
went KBO.
He went KBO.
Yeah. Wonder how he's doing.
It ain't great. Orioles lose 9-0, and they still haven't won a series this year.
Cole Irvin in 3 starts has a 2.63 ERA with the Doosan Bears.
Rolling. Well, you know what they say. The Doosan Bears are the Doosan Bears of the KBO. You know what I mean?
Worst
so-
things to be.
I hear it's a pitcher's park, though.
Wow.
Yeah, so you
Is
got
that
to keep.
true?
I have no idea. Could not possibly tell you. Don't have a clue. They still haven't won a series, and that's tough. That's not a good thing. But they do lead the league in grounded into double plays, and that's not nothing, right? If you're gonna do something, you want to be good at it. And they're very good at grounding into double plays.
They're very good at putting Gunnar and Adley on, and
Yeah,
then
not bringing
with
them
no
home.
outs,
Yeah.
and then not scoring. That's pretty good.
They are good at that. I don't know. I said last Friday was when I sent that tweet that got everybody worked up one way or the other. On Monday, I acknowledged that, look, we do have to recognize how early in the season it is, that nothing is defined, that teams will go through stretches like this all the time. And all of those things remain true. I know Andy Koska wrote today in the Baltimore Banner about the thing that we discussed, which was the carryover from last year and how it is difficult to separate. Like, is this just a blip on the radar that just happens to be occurring early on in the season? You haven't been home much early on in the year. You haven't really been able to get settled. Is it just like a weird wonky schedule thing and we're going to laugh about it later? Is it just the nature of the pitching situation? Now, that obviously doesn't explain grounding into all these double plays and not scoring, either scoring 8 or scoring 0 for the most part. Although, and you talk to baseball players, and they will at times acknowledge to you the thing that we all kind of feel as fans, which is that sometimes when you know your pitcher isn't good and they give up some early runs, you just have a sinking feeling and it permeates and impacts your baseball team. And as I said to whoever brought it up with us earlier this week, I think it was Mioli, I'm like, if that's true, you've got bigger problems. You do, right? Because it's poison. There's no overcoming that. If you can't get yourself up to play because you just assume you're going to lose, then everything's gone to hell. Blow it all up. Every layer. I mean, that is as poisonous gets. That's what the 1998 to 2011 Orioles were. A bunch of guys who had no belief that they were going to win, ever. And it was just poison and just going through the motions. No, the pitching doesn't absolve the Orioles of the fact that they have not been good offensively. Or not consistently good offensively. Like, are they better offensively than they are pitching-wise? Yes, but that's a really low bar. And given the talent that you supposedly have offensively, you should still be better than that. Which leads to the how much of this is a carryover of last year. And it's getting harder and harder to shake that. Andy Koska wrote a piece in the Banner. He asked guys on the team about that. They were all very dismissive. I get it. What are they going to be? They all say the same thing. Hey, every year is different. This year isn't the same as last year. And to be clear, it's not the same. Anthony Santander isn't there. Corbin Burns isn't there. They're, on paper, a worse team. We thought that Felix Bautista being back might make the difference, but Felix Bautista hasn't even had save chances this season. The question becomes, because I've said this a million times, when you guys are screaming about Brandon Hyde because you didn't like the lineups or you didn't like
the pinch hitting
decision or whatever it was, you were yelling into a void. I mean, it was just wasted Twitter space. I mean, to be fair, that's what all of Twitter is, but
unless you tweet that.
No, a lot of mine is wasted too. Although I really can't believe nobody caught the. Did you see the story about? There's a crazy story involving a member of the band Weezer's wife.
Okay,
it's nuts. One of the wildest stories I've ever heard. Consequence of Sound, which is a music news website, wrote about it last night. This is from Alex Young. Ready for the wildest story of the week? The wife of Weezer bassist Scott Schreiner was shot by police.
Oh, my God.
And charged with attempted murder after firing her gun during a manhunt for 3 individuals involved in a high-speed chase in Los Angeles on Tuesday. According to TMZ, officers were searching for 3 suspects in the Eagle Rock neighborhood of Los Angeles on Tuesday afternoon when they encountered Schreiner's wife, Jillian Lauren, who reportedly emerged from her home with a gun in hand and began firing. It's unclear why exactly she was firing, but TMZ speculates that she may have been targeting one of the suspects. And then the next thing you see on the page, this is very important. Get your Weezer tickets here.
You know what? They might have sold me. You think this is all a PR ploy?
We live in a truly dystopian, the steps between us and idiocracy are just not that far apart. We are so close to putting Brondo on the plants. Well, it has electrolytes.
It's what plants crave.
We can't be that far from watching ass TV. We just can't be.
Well, this sounds like a serious situation. Why are you?
It's a very serious situation.
Why are you making light of it?
Right in the middle of it, big flashing button, get your Weezer tickets. As if that has anything. God damn it. All right, sorry. That I did send that out on Twitter, and nobody noticed.
Tweezer?
It. On the Tweezer, yes. And no one noticed it. Anyway, when you all were screaming into the void about Brandon Hyde's lineups, about his pinch hitting decisions, that's exactly what you were doing. You were screaming into the void. Orioles are winning games. You didn't like that he played matchups. You convinced yourselves. There's a similar comparison to me for the people that just scream about Mike Loxley's record. You've just decided that you don't like Mike Loxley. And so in order to justify that, you have to pull out how bad he was at New Mexico to show everyone what a bad coach he is. With all due respect, you have no effing idea what you're talking about. No clue. You just don't. You have no earthly idea. You've just decided that your bit is Mike Loxley isn't a good football coach. There are certainly times that I've disagreed with decisions in games, things along those lines. But as I've said a million times before, what Mike Loxley has done at Maryland football is the equivalent of, at a real place, really winning. You have no clue. You just don't know anything about the subject, and you need something in order to be able to have your fire off your take. On the flip side, what I've always said about Brandon Hyde is you make these types of changes, unless you're in the NBA. Now you just do it when you feel like it. Like if it's the NBA now, it's just like, I don't know, today. They did see the Nuggets won last night, so maybe they're on to something. You make managerial changes when it goes wrong. That's when you make managerial changes. Because, as I said before, the next guy, and it's going to hurt you, is going to make lineups you're going to disagree with. Sorry. I'll hold your hand through it. We'll do whatever we can to survive. The next guy is going to make pinch hitting decisions or walk it. A lot of people were screaming about not walking Josh Naylor the other night.
Walk him every time, I guess. Like, what's the?
I ran it by a few people who said you don't walk the bases loaded in that situation. You just don't do it. Like the people whose opinions I truly trust about this topic, that it's something that we say casually. We pretend like we know the answer to something. This isn't the era that you don't have a pitcher coming up. Like, we just say things. if there's another manager, that guy is going to make decisions that you're going to disagree with constantly. The best ones do. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, you guys love Bruce Bochy. What did the Rangers do last year? I say all of it to say, you change managers when things go south. When it's just not working. And I will acknowledge the same way everybody else. I don't have any issues with Brandon Hyde. I think Brandon Hyde is part of the reason why
they won 101 games 2
yeah,
years ago.
And why the culture was really enviable from a lot of people around baseball. But I can't pretend like I see something different than you all see. It's not good. I don't think they make that decision in April. I think it's crazy. And I know everybody holds up Joe Girardi and says, hey, but here's this example of the time that it worked. I think that's more like a post-Memorial Day.
Which is about when that happened, I think, yeah.
I don't think you could possibly make that decision before Memorial Day. I think that's entirely too small of a sample size, even when we try to compare it to add it to what happened at the end of last year. And I do think that part matters. I do. If the Orioles, had a strong finish last year and then got off to a slow start this year, I wouldn't be even engaging in the conversation. And even as I say it, I still don't know that I think that any of this is Brandon Hyde's fault. Like I think that the microscope right now for Mike Elias, I said this a couple years ago when someone would ask me what I thought of Mike Elias. I would say, I don't know. I mean, he's certainly shown that he can tear it down. But to be fair, I don't know what's ever told us that we know that Mike Elias knows how to win a championship. You could say, well, he was in Houston. Yeah, he was there. Part of that, certainly in identifying talent, was on him. Do we know that he knows what it takes, that he can do that? I don't know. I'm not saying no either. I'm saying I've, for years, said I don't know how good of a general manager Mike Elias is. I think a lot of people are capable of losing. I do. And we can point out, I don't try to take away from Mike Elias and make it seem like, well, anybody could have drafted Adley Rutschman. True. But literally anyone had the chance to draft Gunnar Henderson, and they didn't. I think there's something there. I think there is.
Same for Jordan Westberg, yeah.
Sure. I mean, lots of teams had that opportunity and didn't do it. I think there's something to be said for Mike Elias. But his ability to turn that into a championship, I have no earthly idea. I mean, no clue. And the recent track record isn't good for convincing me of that. Measuring Brandon Hyde by this group of pitchers is real tough. Again, I get it. It's beyond just the pitching. It's a lethargic offense, and you do feel like that group's underperforming. But if you give another manager this group of pitchers, what do you think you're getting out of that?
So, Glenn, it sounds like you're blaming more of this on not necessarily the manager, but someone else right now.
Well, yeah, I am. I think that this right now, at the moment, is more on Mike Elias than it is on Brandon Hyde. But I get how it works. I mean, I do. I understand that if you're the general manager, you fire the manager, you don't fire yourself. An ownership, firing a general manager and changing baseball culture isn't something you do on the fly in the middle of a season. I'm not saying it's never happened, but typically you don't do that because you're changing he's the baseball CEO. So changing everything about how it is that you run the baseball part of your organization, not typically something that you do in the middle of the year. None of this to me means that this is going to happen. I think the conversation is warranted. I think that in a way, you do need to kind of acknowledge, not publicly, they wouldn't do this publicly, but internally, hey, if Southern doesn't get turned around in the next month and a half, we're going to have to make a change. Because you can't just keep doing the same thing. But I don't go back and pull up that Phillies roster from 2022. And look, maybe the argument is by this point, the Orioles might have both Eflin and Grayson back, and they might be pitching well, and like that is kind of the wild card here. As I try to compare why it might be different than 2022 with Joe Girardi, and then what ended up being Rob Thompson. Their pitching staff was.
It was Alvarado's in the bullpen.
Zach Eflin, ironically, was part of it. I do know that.
Zach Eflin was. Anthony Dominguez was in the bullpen.
Yeah, but
I don't know, they didn't split it up by starters for some reason. But yeah, Eflin, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, I assume was pitching. Syndergaard, I want to say Syndergaard wasn't like that healthy that season. Zach Wheeler.
Their rotation was Nola.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, he was
pretty good.
all right.
Kyle Gibson.
Kyle Gibson was in the rotation. That is a fact. He was in the rotation. He made 31 starts. Which is
Maybe they are onto something this year.
Which was hilarious. Ranger Suarez, Bailey Falter, and Zach Wheeler, who was the best of that group, pitching to a 2.82 ERA and 1.039 WHIP. They had Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola at the top of that rotation. So when we say, hey, all you got to do is fire the manager, and look, the Phillies are the perfect example of how everything can change. Do you think you've got Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler in this rotation? It's really tough for me to judge a manager by this. This is not good enough, and we know it's not good enough. And yes, it doesn't give a pass to the offense. And what I would say is if the offense remains this piss poor is unfair, this mediocre, this lethargic until then you do have a bigger conversation or a bigger problem. And sometimes, even when you make a move like this, you acknowledge this is not your fault. We just got to do something. Sometimes people do it so that the spotlight doesn't go onto them, so that nobody, here, we made a change. Don't look at me. Look at the thing we changed. But the construction of the ball club has to be discussed. It's not as good as it was when it wasn't good enough last year. And Mike Elias has to answer for that. And it's not me saying I think he stinks. It's not me refusing to acknowledge moves that have been good, like obviously the trade for Zach Eflin last year, which was outstanding. It's not me throwing pepper for the sake of just throwing pep, like, I think Mike Elias. I'm not telling you that. I'm saying this team, Ken Rosenthal wrote about it this week for The Athletic. They needed to do better. They haven't done. They weren't even as good. There's still a lot of time. There's still an awful lot of time. I don't know how the pitching's getting fixed. I can believe that the offense can settle in and get a bit more consistent. Although it's the thing that we don't like talking about is how much of the same there is. Like, there's a lot of the same here. I don't know how you solve that. I don't think you do, unfortunately. You could say getting Colton Cowser back would be helpful, but we still don't really know what Colton Cowser is either.
I think they really miss Anthony Santander in the middle of the lineup. Like, he was a stopper.
Yeah,
in that lineup.
With the one caveat being that he was never very good at the start of a season, right? Like,
Sure.
like he was never it was weird the way that worked. Like, he never really had good Aprils.
Yeah. He's obviously off to not a good start in Toronto right now.
Yeah,
but
and in general, trust me, I would have, as I said, if the choices were in a vacuum, Anthony Santander or Tyler O'Neill, it's Santander 10 times out of 10 for me. Like, it's not debatable. And Tyler O'Neill's been decent. Like,
But it feels like, when Merrill Kelly is he has a rough first inning and then he starts cruising through the next 6 innings, you feel like Santander is there and he's going to have a 10-12 pitch at bat and force something. And instead they're just stacking 10-12 pitch innings over and over. And Fott's going 6 scoreless. There's no guy in there that is going to sit there and just foul off pitch after pitch after pitch.
Well, and like that was Adley once upon a time. I don't really know what happened there. When remember a year ago there was talk about wanting to get aggressive early, and that's when you're getting your best pitches. But you change your hitting coach, and it hasn't really seemed to change the philosophy. I agree with you that Santander offered a lot there. I don't know why Adley Rutschman isn't that guy. To me, that was part of the magic of Adley Rutschman when he came up, is how he could change a game just with one at bat, just working in at bat.
Maybe he's got a record. Maybe he changed something where he's like, I'm going to be more aggressive, and it's probably worked out a lot. But now, and it works because he had Anthony Santander right behind him, who was going to go ahead and do that. So maybe he has to change his philosophy now and realize I have to be the guy to shake up this whole game. Like,
I can still believe that the offense can be better. I don't know how this pitching is getting better. I just don't know where that's coming from. I can pray that it's. This is where we're at. You're like praying that it's Cade Povich settling in.
Hey, they overturned that Mateo triple into an error.
They took the 3 earned runs away. Yeah.
Cade Povich looking pretty good, actually.
Yeah. Not really. No, as I pointed out, he
only
still gave up 12 other hits.
There should be like 4 unearned hits in there.
Yeah,
though.
you think that's the way that it works? But that's where you're at. You're like, where can you come up with answers? You're really hard pressed to believe that the answers can be any of Charlie Morton, Kyle Gibson or Dean Kramer. You're pretty sure you know who those guys are. It's really hard to believe that any of those guys are the answers. They can be back end of the rotation guys that every now and then are good, but like you're praying that the other two guys that have never succeeded as major league pitchers, can be your answers to carry you over until you can get your major league pitchers back. That is... Whew. Man, to quote John Prine, to believe in this living is a hard way to go. Like, this is a tough life, man. It is a really hard way to live when your hope for how this could possibly work out is maybe the guys that have never, ever succeeded as major league pitchers could in the next couple of weeks become reliable major league pitchers. And I get it doesn't mean that it's impossible. That like this might be when Dean Kramer kicks off the stretch of 5 really good starts that he makes. Maybe. I mean, I think he's going to do it at some point if he stays in the rotation this year. Like, I think we're going to get there. There will inevitably be a stretch where, like, damn, that Dean Kramer, man. Every time I'm down on him, he turns around.
He's a May guy,
Is that what it is? He's just specifically going to be good in May? I don't know. We're just all working through it.
For the record, while we're talking about the manager, because John Schneider was also the other one that happened in recent memory, was also 22, where the Blue Jays fired Charlie Montoya at the All-Star break, and then they ended up
the
making
All-Star
the
break's
playoffs.
not like that.
And they still had a winning record at that point. They had lost like 9 of 10 or something.
Yeah, that's a different thing when you do it at the All-Star break. And what did they end up doing?
They ended up going. They won 92 games, I think, and so they went 46-28 under Schneider, and they lost in the wild card. And then they won 89 games in 23, lost in the wild card.
Right.
And then last year they won 74.
So wash,
pretty much.
Lots of teams have fired managers. I mean, if what you're taking away from this is I think they need to fire Brandon Hyde, you're taking the wrong thing. I think they have true organizational problems, and I think that at some point, if it continues, you're left with no choice but to do something. And the way that this tends to work, you can't really change the players midway through the year.
Which is why nothing's going to happen to Elias this year.
And you can't really change the general manager. I mean, if it was a different general manager internally, it would largely just be the same philosophy. Like if you just tried to say to Sig Mejdal, "Hey,
right.
you're going to be the GM now." Remember, Mike Elias only got the job because he said he could bring Sig Mejdal with him. It's so funny. It's never really been talked about. But that was a different leadership group. I don't know. I have no idea how this group feels. We're all just it's harder when it's April. It's harder when you get invested, your emotions, you get fired up for baseball, and you're like, "Hey, but when's baseball going to start?" It is, because the summer doldrums, this happens all the time. But then if it happens in June and you just look up and you're like, "Wow, this has been a weird 2 weeks. They haven't been very good." You might be on vacation, right? You just might not be. And you had stockpiled good feelings about the players and the team from earlier on in the year. You know they're good. It's really difficult when it happens at the beginning of the year because it really makes you say, are they just not good? And I think a lot of us are feeling that right now. I think we're all in this, is this just not a good baseball team? I think that at some point it's possible that's just the answer. But they have plenty of time to change that. We all like to imagine there's just like one scene. Movies will tell you if somebody just goes in and starts throwing some bats around in the clubhouse, then that's what's going to change it. Or if you just have a closed-door meeting, or bring back the kangaroo court, or I'm still in favor of bringing back the hydration station, but that's a conversation for another day. We just like to imagine if you just do something, then everything changes. And baseball's not been like that. But if it keeps going like this, then around Memorial Day, I absolutely think that the Orioles could just say, we're going to make a change. I think that's possible. A lot of time between now and then, a lot of baseball to be played. But I think that's a possibility. That's on the table. And if you think you're going through it, imagine being a Dallas Mavericks fan. I did watch some of that. I don't normally watch.
Yeah, neither do I. I don't watch any NBA almost ever.
But I did.
Especially during the regular season. It's like,
I had a lacrosse game last night, and then as the lacrosse game was ending, I was like, oh, right, that's going on. So I didn't get to see the bulk of it.
I tuned into like the very beginning, and it was fun hearing the Fire
the
Nico
Fire
chants
Nico
right at the very
chants.
beginning, and good for Luka, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably better off.
It's really funny you say that, right? Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to say everybody wants to play for the Lakers, but I've said it before. LeBron James has been really good as a Laker, and he's like the 30th most relevant Laker of all time. Yeah,
I guess in terms of longevity, and they won a championship.
Yeah, but it wasn't a real one, and that does matter here. If he had won a real championship, then I do think that 30th is probably wrong, but I don't know that he's in the top 20. I mean, you got to really think about this.
If they win a championship this year, jumps up much further.
He definitely jumps up if that's the case. There's no question about it. I mean, like I where he is on the list, I don't know that he. I don't think he's
above Derek Fisher.
Derek Fisher won a lot of championships, man. Like he's definitely a bigger star, but like how could you say LeBron James is a more relevant Laker than like Robert Horry was? And that's not even, Shaq, Kobe, Magic, Kareem, Worthy. Shaq, Kobe, Magic, Kareem, Worthy, Cooper. That's just 6 guys that, to me, are indisputable. Pau? How could you say LeBron James today is a more relevant L.A. Laker than Pau Gasol? After that, you want to start making the argument, I'll listen. But, like, that's part of the L.A. thing. Like, what it takes in Dallas, Luka Doncic had already been the second most important player in franchise history and was well on his way to having a shot to become the number 1. If they had won the title last year, who knows? I mean, Dirk has a title and that he played his entire career in Dallas, so it's really going to be hard to top that. But if Luka had won a title and continued to play in Dallas, then
neck and neck until he wins a second. Yeah.
I mean, I think he's already shown it's possible. He's a greater player. I mean, we can't dismiss. Dirk was so good, man. I mean, he really did change the game in a lot of ways. But to the point, it might very well be that life for Luka was really good. Being someone who was a truly iconic figure to a franchise. Whereas in L.A., he's a star. There's no doubt he's a star. I don't know. Given what we know about the general manager of the Mavericks, yeah, I mean, sure. You'd probably rather not be there because who knows what that psychopath might do. But is he in a better place? I don't know the answer to that. I really don't, because I don't know what drives him.
Right.
And seeing his
emotion
genuine tears before the game last night, you wonder. I mean, the scarring might be significant for him. That he genuinely believed he had the chance to be the guy that would play in this market for forever, just be a beloved figure in that market eternally. It might be some serious scarring. Now, if it's true, he's handling himself quite well.
Yeah. He scored 30 in the first half.
Yeah, finished with 45 last night.
That's good, I think.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you want that. I don't know. I did watch some basketball because I also watched a little bit of the Nuggets and the Kings last night.
Good for you. You're better man than me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the end of the regular season, so like I'm kind of trying to condition. I am doing the bit where I'm like, wow, that guy plays for them. Who knew? DeAndre Jordan still in the NBA?
Wow.
Yeah, I bet you didn't know that.
Is he a Nugget?
Mm-hmm.
He's a king?
Yeah, he's a Nugget.
Okay.
He's a Nugget. Like you have those moments where you're just like, wow, I forgot about that. I forgot that guy was even a basketball player.
Well, yeah, because you're watching the Mavericks game, you're like, that Mavericks actually look pretty good. You know, they got Clay,
right.
They got Kyrie, they got Anthony Davis. He's got long hair now.
I had that moment with the Nuggets last night where I forgot how much I enjoyed watching Christian Braun in the playoffs the last couple of years. I just forgot he was a thing. Like, all right, yeah, he's there too, and he's fun. I enjoy him. I got to be honest, the first time I heard
the season just started.
The first time I heard them mention Levine, I was like, who the hell is Levine? Oh, right, Zach Levine. He's a king. NBA, man.
What place are the Kings in? Are they going to be in the
It's
playoffs?
time for me to get on board. I don't know. Did you see how the Warriors game ended, though?
Last night?
Oh, man. They dropped to the 7th spot.
Oh, wow.
Because they lost at the buzzer at home
So this is
to the Spurs on a wild 3 that was tossed up by
Oh, wow. I just looked it up.
Harrison Barnes.
He's in the league.
Yeah, right? He plays with the Spurs. Why? I don't know. Yeah, some wild stuff. All right, when we come back in, we're going to talk some football.
So that's kind of so they fall into the play-in, but I guess the good news kind of is that they don't have to play the Lakers round 1, so it's like
Oh, is that who the 6th seed is lined up to play?
Yeah, because the Lakers are
so who,
third.
The 2 seed would be Oklahoma City or Houston. Houston is the 2 seed.
Yes.
Yeah, Houston's 2 seed. Oh no. And who's the 6th seed right now? Because it's Memphis.
Memphis. Yeah,
that's not.
They are a half game ahead of.
That's not
State.
decided yet.
Yeah,
that's not settled.
And they're 1 game behind the Clippers. The Warriors are. So in the 7th spot, and then the Clippers in the 5 seed are.
Okay.
Actually, the Nuggets have the same record as the Clippers. They're technically 1 game back of the 4 seed.
I don't know, man. There's a lot to be determined.
There are 2 games left this week, I guess.
Probably. Whoever was doing the broadcast. It was Billis, actually. Billis was on the broadcast with.
Notable NBA guy.
Maybe Mark Jones was who he was doing it with, but he said something like, "It feels like right now you sneeze and you're all of a sudden you drop 3 spots in the Western Conference. You have a bad shoot around." I think that's what he said. He said you have a bad shoot around, and you drop 3 spots in the Western Conference.
So because all 10 teams are locked in, but just 4 through 10 could.
Yeah, the last one that had a chance of getting in was eliminated last night. Thank you for your service, Phoenix Suns. We come back in. We were talking football a little bit this morning. Later on, we're going to meet Chuck Smith IV. He's an NFL draft prospect out of Villanova. He shares a name with the Ravens pass rush coach.
Oh, just a coincidence.
Just weird how that worked out. Chuck Smith IV, which means that his father's name is also Chuck Smith. Could be anybody, though. It's a common name when you think about it. But when we come back in, Jeffri Chadiha wrote a little bit about the Ravens this week for NFL.com. He wrote a little bit about every AFC team and specifically what they do about that Derrick Henry thing. We kind of forgot about the Saquon Barkley extension and what that means. So we'll talk about that and the Ravens going into the draft when we come back in. It is a Thursday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Baltimore's Classic 5 golf courses make golf fun and affordable. All 5 local courses, Pine Ridge, Mount Pleasant, Forest Park, Carroll Park, and Clifton Park, are challenging and fun for players of all skill levels. Book your tee time today at classic5golf.com.
Discover luxury without limits at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. This April, unlock a world of high-fashion delights and exclusive style. Earn entries daily starting April 1st and join our drawing on Friday, April 25th. 19 will win up to $2,000 in cash and free play. And one grand prize winner will take home a curated Versace homeware collection. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Glenn Clark and I sit down for a Q&A with Orioles owner David Rubenstein, discussing what he learned from his first year as owner, his goals both on and off the field, and his involvement in baseball decisions. Also inside, Brooks DeBose profiles new Oriole Tyler O'Neill, and we meet college lacrosse players from around the state. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Thursday edition of the program. As always, as we move on, it's funny because it feels like we just started spring sports season, but we are chugging right along. Some big MIA lacrosse games coming up, and everything you need to know about lacrosse, boys and girls lacrosse, baseball, softball, all spring sports at the high school level. They've got you covered. CountySports.zone. That's CountySports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. I always say you try to be a well-rounded, fully informed Baltimore sports fan. This is your opportunity to get to know the names that matter, potential future stars, people that years from now you're going to be saying, wow, that guy was from Baltimore. How about that? they are going to introduce you to those people over at countysports.zone. That's countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Dan asks, do you think they purposely wait until the pitchers are back in order to judge Brandon Hyde? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with a caveat of, like, if for some reason the news gets worse for Grayson Rodriguez and for Zach Eflin, and, like, they're not going to be back until July, I don't know that you purposely say, well, we can't judge anyone until then. If it continues to be bad, then I just think that the result could be the result, and you can make a change for the sake of making a change. But ideally, yes, you want to get those guys back to have a better picture of what your team is. And if the timeline works out that both of those guys are back by May, then I do think it gives you a little bit of an opportunity between then and Memorial Day to kind of judge that group a bit more wholly. Of course, as I say that, it's baseball. 2 other guys could get hurt between now and then, too. Lord. All right, let's switch up. Let's talk some football this morning. Always appreciate when we get an opportunity to catch up with our friend Jeffri Chadiha from NFL.com, who had a burning question this week for every team in the AFC. Jeff, it's Glenn in Baltimore. Always great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
No problem, man. Always good to be on with you.
Man, it's funny because I will have to acknowledge, like a lot of people, that, with the draft coming up and trying to figure out what the Ravens' most pressing need is, I had kind of, like, forgotten about the whole Saquon Barkley contract. And we certainly talked about it when it happened and what it meant for Derrick Henry. And I don't know exactly what the answer is, right? Because you point out the aspect, it's Derrick Henry, undoubtedly his camp, saw that for Saquon Barkley and said, how about that? But the Ravens undoubtedly said, yeah, and with all due respect, you're great, but you're also not Saquon Barkley. I think that this is not, like, I can't imagine they're so far apart that you can't figure out a way to make it work, but it is still something that exists that you assume they'd probably want to do before this season so that it worked out so well. I don't know that you want him going into the year in the last year of his contract.
Oh, totally. And it's the thing. It's like, I don't know if the Eagles up the ante for the Ravens, because you look at the contract that Derrick Henry signed, that 2-year, $16 million deal. And at the time, it made sense because of where he was at in his career and the market for his services. But clearly he outperformed it. But the question you have is, Derrick Henry's going to be 31, and it's 3 years older than Saquon. And even though they both put up great numbers, how much more can you expect from Derrick Henry? And what's a fair market deal? It is tricky because you're not going to give him like a 3-year contract or something like that at this stage. But I imagine that both sides want to find a way to make his compensation better. There are ways to do it. I mean, whether that's trying to come up with some kind of a 2-year extension, whether it's really a 1-year deal with some way to get him a little more money in this year. But yeah, to be on a contract that pays him $8 million a year on average after the year he had doesn't seem like a great deal for him.
I agree with that. Although, again, I don't think it's $20 million either, right? Like, I think if you're Derrick Henry's camp, you ask for that. But I do think that you understand that Saquon Barkley, for as much as we talk about how it was a good year for running backs, I still think we recognize how unique Saquon Barkley is as, like, the centerpiece of an offense. And while Derrick Henry is great, Lamar Jackson is the centerpiece of the offense. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Jalen Hurts, who had a phenomenal year, but I think we saw how dramatically different it was. And as good as Derrick Henry was, it was still about the same totality-wise for the Ravens with Derrick Henry as it was the year before with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but I would also say that I don't know if I ever saw J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards carry the team in the way Derrick Henry did when don't forget about the way they started and what they had to do to get back into it. And that 5-game run he had there was pretty
unquestionable. I really am not trying to take anything away from Derrick Henry, I swear. I think he blew my mind how good. I was like, wow, this guy was available, and everybody just sort of said, we'll let the Ravens have him for $8 million. That is a choice. That is something that they did. All right, so I think they need to deal with it, but obviously we know that Derrick Henry is going to be on the team. So I guess let me go bigger picture then, Jeff, to you, where this roster is headed into the draft. As John Harbaugh said at the meetings, like, we feel like we're good enough that we could line up and play, and I kind of don't disagree with him there. I don't think there's anything that you look at this roster and say, here's why you're panicked. I think if there's one area that I feel strongest about, like, they still need some kind of secondary help because they needed it last year when Brandon Stevens wasn't able to get the job done.
Yeah, I definitely think that the cornerback is a spot where you can see them really being focused in this draft. But I think overall, I said this last year, their roster is one of the top 3 or 4 in the NFL, hands down. And I still feel that way about it at this stage of the off season. I mean, it's like, yeah, as I went through this exercise and was looking at every team, you're looking at draft needs and draft priorities and holes and people like the extensions like Derrick Henry. It's like, their papers. You look at them and you're like, I didn't realize they were that good shape.
Mm-hmm.
They're everywhere you look, they've got people you like, and really the biggest question, I didn't want to be glib and throw it out at this point else. The biggest question is, how do they figure out how to win more games in the postseason?
Correct. Correct.
That's the big, and that's not really I don't know how you work on that in the off season, but that's always what's been the killer for the last couple of years is that they beat themselves, and that's got to change.
Jeff, it's so funny. We've talked about this the last couple of years. It's almost like the regular season becomes boring because whatever they do. Win, lose, whatever, unless something truly goes to hell. If it all goes haywire, it's a different conversation. But short of that, there is only one question, right? Like, are you going to win in the postseason? That's you can't define that. There's nothing you can do in the offseason that defines it. A couple of things. One, I think a lot of people know you're based out of Kansas City. I know DeAndre Hopkins wasn't great as a Kansas City Chief, but the expectations here are so low. Like, they don't need him to be a number 1 guy. They don't need him to be a number 2. They really need him to be a number 3, and I get it, the health could change that and what they need out of him. And I still think the Ravens would be wise to maybe bring in one more wide receiver in the draft, but it's hard for me to be down on once upon a time when the Ravens were bringing these, they needed Mike Wallace at the tail end of his career to be a number 1 receiver. That was a problem. But given what they have, this to me makes sense. And as much as Odell Beckham maybe didn't live up to being paid $15 million, he was helpful in Baltimore. He made big catches every game that season. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins can be that guy still.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins was miscast in Kansas City, and I think people who were really being honest with themselves when he showed up here understood that. You look at Patrick Mahomes and his willingness to throw contested catches throughout his career. He has never been that kind of quarterback, and DeAndre Hopkins is exactly that kind of receiver. He's not a fast guy. He's going to try to bully people and use those great hands. And so I wasn't surprised that it went downhill. But I do think in Baltimore, it's probably a better fit for him because you have to, one, you have to assume that Lamar Jackson's improvisation is going to be a bigger factor in him having opportunities to get open. Derrick Henry's presence, Zay Flowers' presence, those tight ends, all those guys are going to make it easier on him to be able to operate and do certain things. And you're right, he's not going to be a number 1, but I think for his skill set and his savvy, his experience, I think there is a lot more reasons to be excited about him in that offense. Again, not being a 70-catch guy, but being a guy who can do what Odell Beckham Jr. did when he was there a couple of years ago.
I feel like, unfortunately, the really burning question for the Baltimore Ravens continues to be, do they have a kicker? And I think we all believe, and I get why it's hard to make that the burning question because it's we can't answer that. We don't have the ability. Are you surprised that we're this deep in and we still don't really know anything about this? Does it make you wonder what they're thinking at this point?
Oh, I think this is very similar to what Deshaun Watson's situation was like in Houston, where there's a lot of you have this many allegations. It's basically a he said, she said situation multiple times over. I don't know how you really are able to successfully investigate that and get hard conclusions from it. And so, I don't minimize any of this stuff when it comes up.
Right.
But certainly you have the number, the sheer volume. It begs the question of, okay, how do you get to the bottom of this? And yeah, I mean, I think in case of the Deshaun Watson, it just became a situation where let's just sit him down and let's just try to figure it out because it was getting so murky. I don't know if that happens with Justin Tucker, but it does. It feels like there's not an easy solution to it, and I do wonder if he's going to be playing this year as a result because you have to go through so many different cases and so many different stories, and what evidence can you actually ultimately glean from it? I just don't know.
Right, and how willing is everyone to participate in the conversations, and it all 100% becomes part of the issue that you face in a situation like this. And I'm glad you said what you said because it's important that we constantly say it. And none of it is to dismiss the seriousness of it whatsoever because it is incredibly serious and incredibly significant, and there's no doubt about it. Jeff, if I could, because I just taking a look around the division and everything that you wrote about, it blows my mind that a team like the Cleveland Browns, who has had a generational talent, brought him back, paid him an absurd amount of money, but has literally nothing to show for the Myles Garrett era whatsoever because they've never been able to figure out quarterback. I don't know truly how great Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are, but I know you're not winning a damn thing unless you have a quarterback. It blows my mind the thought that they would do anything other than just hope that one of those two guys can become their quarterback of the future. What do you make about how they're handling it? And I also want to the Pittsburgh thing to me is like the greatest blessing the Ravens could ever have, that they are so unserious about the quarterback position.
Oh, I agree. I think it is mind-boggling, both those teams. Pittsburgh is a different situation just because they've relied so much on defense and, ball control and turn people over. But with Cleveland, if the plan is, hey, we really think Kenny Pickett can turn his career around here, like that's not really a really good plan. Even if you're not, it's not even an option.
I know that like you have a job and all of that, and so like you can't say it the way that I'm saying it. But like this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. They answer it, and I would say for either way. Like, and I know that like Pittsburgh is probably going to be Aaron Rodgers, which is also silly, but not quite as silly as the idea that it's Mason Rudolph. But like, could you imagine like that being maybe we could just win with Kenny Pickett?
Yeah. And say it, with a straight face in your room, in your offices to your owner. After what you went through with Deshaun Watson, I would think you'd have to find somebody just to feel like, hey, here's an option that we've and I'm a big Andrew Berry fan. I think they built a phenomenal roster there, but to be in that situation again is mind blowing. Yeah, I don't know how. Whatever you think about Shedeur Sanders, and to me, he's the number 2 quarterback in his class. Whatever you think about him, whether it's like it's okay to say he's not a savior on the level of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Like he's not going to do those kind of things for you. But your roster should be so good, and your coaching should be so good that you can find a way to make it work. Like what is aside from trading for Kirk Cousins, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen. What are you just going to go through another year of this? In a division that clearly you're not going to keep up with the Ravens. The Bengals, whatever you think about how much money they're spending on their receivers, are still a team that could probably win 8-9 games with those guys alone.
Right.
And so where do you sit in a conference where
it's a murderer's row of quarterbacks?
Yeah. It's like you have to start grooming people. That's why I give the Broncos tons of credit for taking Bo Nix and turning him into something, because people were laughing when they made that pick, but it was like, hey, we got to get somebody.
You don't have a prayer if you don't have the guy. Like it's
exactly.
I hate feeling like you're being held at gunpoint when it comes to quarterback, and I know that it leads to you making really bad decisions when you're in this spot sometimes. But like you either have it or you're hopeless. Like it's one or the other. It just seems so simple to me, and I get it. I'm a dumb guy, Jeff, and you're much smarter than I, so I'm glad that we're on the same page when we have these conversations. It's nuts to me, and I get that the Steelers. It's baked into the cake. They're going to win 9 games no matter who's playing at quarterback. I understand that, right? But we've also seen as much as everybody wants to pile on Mike Tomlin and what's happened in the postseason, and I other than one, Thanksgiving in Baltimore, have great respect for Mike Tomlin because I know, as we've all pointed out, given what we know about that group, he probably should have a Nobel Peace Prize at this point. How you hold that against him and not have the conversation of it's miraculous he's been in the playoffs with the quarterbacks that he's had to work with. It's a miracle that he's had the chance to disappoint fans by not winning in the playoffs because, my God, this is the group that he's been given. How do they possibly think that the answer is, well, it didn't work for the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, but maybe it might work for us to do anything other than just the same, you're going to win 9 games because that's what the Steelers do?
Well, yeah, and I totally agree with that. And the point I was going to make about Tomlin in comparison to Kevin Stefanski, who I like a lot, at what point is Kevin Stefanski not to blame for the quarterback issues in Cleveland? If you're running an offense that only certain quarterbacks can play in, then why don't you find quarterbacks who can do that? But on the Mike Tomlin part of it, yeah, look, I get they're not the first franchise to have to lose a Hall of Fame quarterback and have to wander in the wilderness for a long time. It's usually the way it goes. The Giants are going through it with Eli. You saw what Denver went through when Peyton retired. It was 10 years of mayhem at that position. And so it's I think sometimes you have such a high expectation for it and you're so comfortable with what you've had that you just can't get your mind around what's it going to take for the next guy to succeed. And I've had conversation with different GMs about this, and I think I've come around to the idea that, as one person told me, that so many teams are consumed with finding, a Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels type guy that if you're able to build a good roster and you're smart about the kind of quarterback who can fit into that system, then you can find ways to win games and probably have a chance to win a championship. That's what the Eagles just did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jalen Hurts is not a world beater, but you look at what's around him, it's pretty dang impressive. You look at what the Vikings did with Sam Darnold last year. And so
but I still feel like there's a difference. Like I still think that Jalen Hurts is better than Sam Darnold, right? Like, and maybe
Yeah.
I still feel like there's a level. I know exactly what you're saying about Jalen Hurts, and I think the words I used is like Jalen Hurts. If you take away Nick Foles, who wasn't a full season starter, right? Like Jalen Hurts is the worst starting quarterback to have won a Super Bowl since Joe Flacco, right? But he's still, I think, a top 6 quarterback in the NFL. Like it's a fine. I know what you're saying about Sam Darnold. They found a guy, but I still think there's a limit to that, right? Like I still think that you're getting a guy that's limited that you can win games with. I don't know that you can win a championship with. And that's, I think, the really interesting part to me about all these teams that continue to kind of go that route instead of just saying we need to draft and hope to find our next guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, and again, it's like if you're a Cleveland and you're sitting there at top 5 pick, it's a different story than Pittsburgh. It's always going to be around, 21, 22, 23. And the options aren't as good. But, again, that comes back to Mike Tomlin, God love him, hadn't had the best offensive coaches in there in the last 5 or 6 years.
It's true.
And so does that a factor in Kenny Pickett's demise, that you're running an offense or you're doing things the quarterback can't do well? The thing about Philadelphia that I give them great credit for, I know Nick Sirianni is a powder keg and he's, half crazy and he does a lot of, eclectic stuff. But when Jalen Hurts got there, they turned the offense into a run-first deal, and they ran for more yards than anybody in history, and they made the playoffs. The next year, they opened it up. The third year, it was, he was banged up, and they had to do some things. And then last year, they got Saquon Barkley on it. Every year, they've recognized, what do we need to do to make this kid succeed? And I think that, to me, is the biggest thing a lot of teams don't do. They just sit around and say, well, we got to find a quarterback and plug him in there and let him do what he has to do. And it's not that simple anymore. I mean, you can probably get away with it in some places, but for the most part, if you're just hoping to just plug a guy in and have him perform at a high level for you, regardless of what you have around him, then I think that's asinine.
I do agree with that wholeheartedly, right? Like, this is your franchise. This is to be fair. Like, this is the. I'm not really trying to get involved in a revisionist history conversation about Joe Flacco, but it was the problem that I had after you saw. Hey, if you just give him really good wide receivers and let him air the ball out, which is what he wants to do, you can get something out of Joe Flacco. And then they said, okay, so what if we give him no wide receivers and a West Coast offense and try to have him throw it 50 times underneath? That I'll never in my life understand.
But the flip side of it, though, is that when Lamar Jackson showed up, they went 100%
right
on
him, correct, and said, what can we do to get the absolute best out of Lamar Jackson? And they deserve all the credit in the world for that. No question about it. At Jeffri Chadiha, JEFFRICHADIHA. That's how you follow him. Of course, we're going to link up his story, The Burning Questions from NFL.com, on our Twitter account as well. Jeff, anything between now and the draft that we should be on the lookout for?
Just more columns like that. Just talking about roster resetting and just burning questions. That time of the year, pretty soon it'll be all draft stuff. So I think before you know it, but nothing, over the top.
Jeff, always appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning. You're the best. Love to do it again real soon, all right?
Thank you, man. Take care.
Jeffri Chadiha, NFL.com, with us here on GCR, as you know, one of my favorites, and appreciate him taking the time. I just keep scratching my head. It's very similar to the conversation about Corbin Burns when we talk about these other teams and the quarterback thing. Like, my frenemy, Rob Shields, who I think writes for Utah Street Report, but he loves to fight. I've come to this great place with Rob where he's a Duke fan, he's an Orioles fan, and he just likes to push my buttons. But I genuinely like him. It's very weird. I don't know how to explain it. I think he's very smart as part of it. Like, I think he's very smart. But Rob was saying the other day when I tweeted something out about the Browns being unserious at quarterback, he was like, yeah, but I wouldn't take Shedeur Sanders at number 2. And I get it. Dane Brugler just put out his big draft preview that he does every year for The Athletic. It's called The Beast. And Dane doesn't have either of the quarterbacks in the top 10 ranked prospects in this year's class.
Including Cam Ward.
Neither of them.
Wow.
Doesn't have either one of them in the top 10. And I understand exactly why people would say these top picks are too valuable. Travis Hunter might be a generational talent. Abdul Carter might be a generational talent. Ashton Genty might really be the best running back that we see in the NFL in years. I mean, like, list the whole thing out. But what is that going to do for your franchise? In the same way that you say, well, I wouldn't pay Corbin Burns 6 years when he looks like he might already be slightly declining. But then you don't get Corbin Burns. And when you say, I think this quarterback's really only the 15th best prospect in the draft, I wouldn't take him at number 2. Okay, then you don't have a quarterback. This just isn't hard. The NFL is have quarterback or not. And as many times we could say, well, and I appreciate what Jeff's saying. Look at what the Vikings got out of Sam Darnold. Yeah, so much so that then they decided we'd rather not have Sam Darnold. Because they know either you have high-level quarterback or you don't. And nothing else really matters. So, to me, as a Ravens fan, I love the idea that the Browns are not prioritizing the quarterback position. Go draft Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. And yeah, is it possible that next year you could draft a quarterback and it could work out for you? Absolutely. Or it's possible we could be doing this forever. They're pretty good at that in Cleveland. And if you have a better roster around, it's also possible that now you win 7 or 8 games instead of 4, and that prevents you from having the opportunity of drafting that generation, even if it's just 5 or 6. That's the difference in your ability to draft a generational quarterback. Draft this one. And if this one doesn't work out, you draft another one. Because until you have a quarterback. Did the Commanders have a particularly good roster a year ago?
Last year, not really. I mean,
No.
they had Terry McLaurin, but no,
they
not
had
really.
Terry McLaurin. They had one really good wide receiver. And what's his face was still probably better, the linebacker, the inside linebacker, who's.
You're talking about before they had Jaden Daniels, or you're talking about with the?
I'm saying last year.
Where
year.
they made the NFC Championship
Yes.
run. I mean, they had.
Who is the linebacker that's really good but it's at the tail end of his career? Bobby Wagner.
Yes,
Jesus
Bobby Wagner.
Christ.
Yeah.
Hey. Like Bobby Wagner's still good, but he's at the tail end of his career. Jonathan Allen, before he got hurt, I think was still pretty good. But then he got hurt. And they made it to the NFC Championship game anyway. What did they have?
Yeah, no, I guess not
Yeah, look at that
crazy amounts.
roster. Zach Ertz at the end of his career. Brian Robinson's, solid. I don't think he's bad by any stretch of the imagination, but he's solid.
Austin Eckler?
Yeah. They did not have a very good roster. But what did they have?
They had Jaden Daniels.
A quarterback. And now they can add to that. So I pray that the Steelers continue to do this. And yes, the point that he makes is it is different for the Steelers because they aren't drafting in the top 5.
John does not like the conversation. John in Little Rock does not like this conversation.
Why?
He said you have to be sure it's the QB you want for your franchise. You don't just pick a quarterback just to pick one.
John, I love you.
Why pick a quarterback you don't believe in?
Because then you don't have a quarterback. There's no option here.
Franchise QBs can be found in any round, and he said this is why why y'all aren't GMs.
Joey, John's on one this morning.
Fight.
John's on one. He's really mad about us cutting back to an hour.
Yeah, He's like, I gotta throw him topics.
Yeah, right. Get him fired.
Now
Get him fired up so he can't do 1 hour. I couldn't disagree more, John. Like, if this one doesn't work out, you have to draft your next one because the answer can never be I don't have a quarterback. The idea of you can find it another round, maybe.
Like if you're the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers does not sign, like they got to take a quarterback at 20 or whatever, 21, whatever. They're like,
I'm absolutely going Milroe or Dart at 21
because they have to. Otherwise, they're just going to be
or praying
8
that
and 9.
Shedeur.
Yeah, they're gonna be 8 and 9 no matter what. We know that. Or 9 and 8, I guess.
Yes.
But so I mean, you might as well take a quarterback and potentially Milroe is the guy. Or Dart is the guy.
Nobody
or
thought.
Shedeur falls
No
there. I mean,
one
I
thought
hope
Bo
Shedeur
Nix
doesn't
was
fall
the guy. I love Jeff Chadiha's. Bo Nix is the answer to this. No one thought Bo Nix was the guy, and I don't know that Bo Nix is ever going to win a Super Bowl as the Broncos quarterback. But you know why they have a chance? Because he looked competent. And I think Jeff's other point is maybe you're not in love with the quarterback that's there. But if he is a high-end talent of any sort, then you change everything about your franchise to make it work with that quarterback. Yes, Jaden Daniels appears to be a level of special that goes beyond that. And the people that point out that Jaden Daniels in year 1 was better than Lamar Jackson was in year 1 are correct. Now, again, their age is also different in that conversation. It's not apples to apples the way that some people want to point it out. Shedeur Sanders might not be Jaden Daniels because Jaden Daniels deserves to be discussed in a little bit of a more revered way. In the history of the NFL, rookies that were that good that quickly, extraordinarily small. But the answer isn't Kenny Pickett. And by the way, the answer might be doing what Washington did once upon a time, where they took Robert Griffin III, and then they said, we're going to take another one. And that guy turned out to be Kirk Cousins in the same draft. That might be the answer. And it's not impossible that you can find your guy in round
7.
Yeah, I mean,
Brock Purdy.
I'm aware. It's
Tom Brady.
I'm still not really sure about Brock Purdy all of a sudden. But I get it.
You'd rather have him than
Yes, certainly than
Mason
Kenny Pickett or
Rudolph
Mason Rudolph. Yes, you're 100% accurate about that. There is no doubt. It's not impossible, no question about it. But you have to prioritize the position.
Now, to advocate for the other point, do the Colts, how do the Colts, they ended up just taking Anthony Richardson because he was the guy there that was there at 4.
And to me, I think it's insane that they are just writing off Anthony Richardson in favor of, like, Daniel Jones, right?
Well, I mean,
I think that's
saying
nuts.
it's a full-out.
Yeah, they're saying it's a competition or whatever it is. Like that. You just draft another quarterback. That's what I'm going to. You draft a quarterback until you find the guy.
But they can't draft one in round 1.
Why not?
I mean,
I get it. If you want to say this draft, it's not a good draft for them to take one in round 1. Where are they picking? They're 14th. If Shedeur Sanders is sitting there at 14, if he slips past the Raiders, and that seems unlikely. But if somehow Shedeur Sanders is sitting there at 14 and I'm the Indianapolis Colts, I'm absolutely. Because I don't think I have the answer. If that's how you feel about Anthony Richardson, then I don't think I have the answer on my roster. And I get it. Uniquely, the Anthony Richardson problem being accuracy, I get. Where you might say uniquely, I don't think we can fix this. I'd still be inclined to.
Well, they got another accurate guy, Daniel Jones.
Right. Super accurate. That's the guy that's going to solve your accuracy problems, is going out and getting Daniel Jones. I 100%. The alternative is hell or purgatory, whichever one you'd prefer. And I'm not sure which one is worse, because at least in hell you have another chance to get another quarterback. The Steelers are kind of stuck in purgatory, where they just never feel like they have a chance. Still, to your point, 100%. Whether Aaron Rodgers signs or not.
Take Shedeur. I mean, if Shedor's there,
Well, Shedeur, but I would still be taking a quarterback. I would be taking a quarterback because I've got to find my guy somehow, some way. I do like Jackson Dart. I mean, I really do. I know a lot of people like Milroe better, but I like Jackson Dart.
Is that why you feel the way that you do? You feel, John, that he's saying he's hoping Cleveland and Pittsburgh don't draft quarterbacks. So that's
well, yeah. I mean, that's how this all started.
You would hope
yeah.
they both are like, man, we don't like Shedeur.
I hope they
Dart.
continue to just say that we think this other guy could be a generational talent. Look, man, it's tough going up against Myles Garrett every time you play the Browns. It sucks. I hate it. Myles Garrett's unbelievable. He's one of the best players of a generation. But have they actually been an impediment?
The one year they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
They had a quarterback.
It's crazy how this works. Crazy how this works out. All right, we come back in. Someone who might hear his name called in the NFL draft, who happens to have a very unique connection to a Baltimore Ravens coach.
Yeah, just the same name. Right?
They share a name. It's crazy how that's. It's like when there were 2 Lamar Jacksons. Remember, there was that cornerback from Nebraska and the one here. Well, believe it or not, there's 2 Chuck Smiths. Well, I guess there's been 4 because he's Chuck Smith the 4th. Yeah, the son of Ravens edge rush coach or pass rush coach Chuck Smith. Chuck Smith the 4th is going to join us next here on Glenn Clark Radio.
Discover luxury without limits at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. This April, unlock a world of high fashion delights and exclusive style. Earn entries daily starting April 1st and join our drawing on Friday, April 25th. 19 will win up to $2,000 in cash and free play. And one grand prize winner will take home a curated Versace homeware collection. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
What makes the Costas Inn so special? This is Stan the Fan telling you that it's the people that work for you, cooking and serving. But that menu is also special with a capital S. Soups, salads, the raw bar, pasta dishes, seafood specialties, and entrees like the Costas Combo, steaks, chops, ribs, amazingly delicious meatloaf, and all manner of delicious filling sandwiches including pit beef and turkey and subs. Of course, the steamed crabs are as good as you can get anywhere, and they serve them 12 months a year. The crab cakes are out of this world. Costas is open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and coming soon, very soon, Costas in Timonium at the OTB Parlor at Timonium Racecourse. We'll get you the opening date real soon.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Want to improve your golf game or learn to play for the first time? The Baltimore Golf Academy has fun, instructional programs for the beginner golfer to everyday players. The Baltimore Golf Academy can take your game to the next level. Enroll today at baltimoregolfacademy.com.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Thursday edition of the program. As we mentioned, we actually had to do this a little bit earlier on because of his training schedule, but one particularly unique connection to an NFL draft prospect is this young man that we had the chance to catch up with, Chuck Smith the fourth, with us right now here on GCR.
Well, we've been meeting some of the draft prospects in this year's class, and the next one that we're going to meet here on Glenn Clark Radio is someone who has a very unique connection to the Baltimore Ravens. He is former Villanova defensive lineman, and you'll probably recognize the name. He's the son of Ravens pass rush coach Chuck Smith. He's Chuck Smith the fourth, and he's with us now here on GCR. Chuck, it's Glenn. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, it's good to get to know you. Can you take me back, the son of a football player and ultimately a coach? Did you always know, like, football was the thing for you, or was there any rebellion in you where you're like, I don't know, maybe basketball is more my thing when you were younger?
I had a short baseball stint, but, when I was playing fall ball, it was too cold. The pads really warmed you up. So, really, growing up, football was my main thing. Growing up, my dad, he liked to more watch than coach than anything else. So he would watch me, but it was still, I was always hand to the ground, like I was always a D lineman at that point. So it was cool, but I was always a football guy growing up.
Did you ever have a moment where you wondered if you just wanted to do something else and not, like, I'm sure you had to deal with, like, comparisons to your dad and things like that. Did you ever have a moment where you're like, man, I kind of wouldn't mind if I would just, you mentioned baseball, something where I didn't have to deal with that type of stuff?
Yeah, those thoughts come and go, but really, football was one of those things I loved, even outside of my family and stuff like that. It was something that I enjoyed watching the great ones like Aaron Donald do their thing.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's one of those things where you watch and then you find a love for yourself more than anything else. And then I feel like some people maybe struggle with their family or friends putting pressure on them, but it was never like that for me. I really found football. My dad, of course, he showed me a lot of things football-wise to get love for the game, but I really found that love just for myself, just experiencing it and watching it and the camaraderie you have with the guys.
I was going to say, I wanted to, how did you find your own love? Like, what was it about football? What was it, was it in high school? Where was it that you realized, like, this is for me, this is what I want to do?
So I've always loved football and the fact that, like, you have a group of guys coming together for one kind of cause, you're all working towards the same goal, stacking bricks each day at practice. I feel like that's a little different from when I realized, like, I could really take this somewhere. I remember I was in the 8th grade. You're not in high school yet. And I remember at that point I was getting more sacks and more tackles than usual. I'm like, all right, hey, let's see where this thing can go, And then, you're a freshman, so you don't really play much. Sophomore, same thing. But then junior year, you're playing more, and you're like, okay, I'm hanging out. And then senior year, like, I'm kind of like standing out among these guys, And then that whole process just repeats from there. And then you get to this point.
He is Chuck Smith the fourth. He's with us here on GCR. Chuck, famously, before your dad was with the Ravens, he was known for his training and what he would do with athletes away from the regular, the football field and season. Did you go through the same type of training when you were in high school and even the start of your career at Wofford? Did you do all the same things that, like, we see, the Dafe Oways, the David Ajabos of the world doing in the off season?
Now, I'm no Doff and I'm no Ojabo. Those guys are legends right there. They're top tier pass rushers, Dolph got to show it last year, and I'm sure Jabba is about to show it this next year. But when I was growing up, I was doing not the same thing, but sort of a similar, Of course, they're doing some at a way different level for how the Ravens do it. Compared to me, I was really just doing straight pass rush, defensive line work. But my dad, he was very, very fundamental in that, like I would get out of school, get out of seventh period. We would drive over to the gym. It was called GATA, and we'd be hitting bags. I think I have videos of me slapping bags since I was like 7 years old, to be honest.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
What is it like? I assume that you got the opportunity to get to know besides your dad, other football players, other guys that he was working with, maybe teammates. Was there anybody that you connected with that besides your dad that maybe was important to you in your own process in getting to this place?
Yeah, no. So there were a lot of football players who I got to pick bits and pieces of knowledge from, but I would really say the biggest instrument besides my dad is this guy named Des Walker. Des works with a bunch of big guys. He works with he helped Dolph last year, Matabike. I've known Des for feels like years and years now, but Des is one of those guys. He knows how to break everything down at help me understand it in a way that I can process and stuff like that. And it's not like he's giving me any kind of special instructions. He's just that good of a teacher. And when you have that kind of a teacher, it's almost like the Karate Kid movie, That's really what I describe it like.
We do a wax on, wax off, like the whole deal. No, I we've gotten to know Des a little bit, and I know to the point what he's like, how important that work was that he did with Matabike and with the Dafe. Did you work out with those guys at all the last couple? Even at any have you gotten to know just from your dad being in Baltimore? Have you gotten to know those guys?
I worked out with Matabike twice. That guy he's built different,
He's a freak, isn't he?
Talented, yeah. But he's a good dude. All of them are really good dudes. I came to practice, in their off season, stuff like that. Watch them. They're all really great guys. I'm really excited to see what they do this year too. But again, training with Beak, that guy's different animal right there.
That's really cool, man. Chuck, with that in mind, I am. Do you ever say, "Hey, man, you got me right? I'm gonna be. I got a home, right? Do you have those conversations with him at all, or do you have to avoid that topic altogether because it's just as likely that you could end up, in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh,
Yeah. Nah, I feel like it isn't anything taboo between me and my dad to talk about those kind of things. Of course, that's on the table, and being serious, he would be happy for me going anywhere, to be honest, and just us in that scenario. Really, if I was away from him, I probably want to compete super hard against him. It's like that. I'm always competitive, and he doesn't say it, but he's super competitive too. We compete at everything, whether it be ping pong, video games, or anything really. But yeah, it's not a taboo subject. I feel like it's one of those things where he's more of a dad first than a coach. And that's always been big. People always ask, oh, what's it like, growing up and stuff like that. But I always lead off with he's a dad before a coach, and that's how he's always been. That's how he's always operated, And so, he just be happy for real.
And it's cool, man. I want to come back to that, but let me go back to you as we're chatting with Chuck Smith IV. Your path, starting at Wofford, going to Villanova. What was the thought process? You had been productive. You had success at Wofford. What was it that you wanted to accomplish at Villanova last year?
Wofford was great. Made a lot of great connections. The coaches there are great. Facilities, everything was great. Going from there to Villanova, it was a change, but they embraced me, and I felt like that was really big. I know there are a lot of stories of guys, they go from program, and then it seems like they go to another program and another program. That wasn't the case for me at Villanova. When I had first left Wofford, I was looking for a school that fitted my needs at that point in my career. Villanova was that. Coach Ferrante, great guy, and same of Coach Watson at Wofford. So,
nothing's a given when you go through a process like this, right? And it wasn't the Senior Bowl and the combine, the big. How do you stand out when you don't get those big opportunities? How do you show everyone you should be calling my name? You should be giving me an opportunity.
Yeah, I really relate that question to the phrase, you don't count days, you make the days count. So the opportunities are given to you, That's the ones you got to make count, whether it be in any aspect of life. Like when you're going into high school, you got to make those opportunities count, make those things count to get to the next stage. And then when you get to college, and when you're in practice as like a young guy and you see these guys, maybe they'll mess up a rep. You got to take a mental rep on that. And then when you get up to that process, you make those things count too. And then for me, I was in the Tropical Bowl. So I'm like, the Tropical Bowl, it's not the Senior Bowl, but I'm going to make it count anyways. I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to go show out. I'm going to go show everyone I can do. And by putting my effort out there and doing all that, someone will spark, hey, someone's going to see what I can do.
What is it that you think people are missing about you, Chuck? Like if they just see Villanova guy, he's not like a double-digit sack guy. Like if they don't see, what do you think they're missing about what it is that you're going to bring to the table in the NFL?
I think football is bigger than numbers. I think if you watch my tape, I feel like you see a guy who competes every play. No plays are taken off. I feel like you see someone hustle at a speed for they shouldn't really be hustling at. I feel like not only the things you don't see, like behind the scenes, I'm a big leader. I'm a big competitor. I'm working hard. I'm always trying to get the edge on people, So when I was growing up, I'm like, same with my dad. I'm like, we were never the biggest. We were never the fastest, never anything like that. But through sheer willpower and working hard, you can kind of make up that edge. And then your technique, when you get to that part, that's what really can propel you over the top. So I feel like if anyone's watching what I can do, you can see, man, this guy competes. Like he's working his tail off right now.
It's funny because the Ravens have a history of like undrafted free agents, and like Michael Pierce was just here for a year, just announced his retirement, was an undrafted free agent out of Samford, right? Like, and had an incredible career. It requires an amount of work and a chip. Do you feel like you're that type of person that no matter how this goes, whether your name is called or not, that you're ready to go do the work to say, I don't care what the path is, I'm going to go make a roster in the fall?
Yeah, nothing's given. You got to earn everything, to be honest. So I feel like for me, and I know how I've always operated, I want to go get it by any means necessary. Whether it gets called or not, I know I'm going to keep working just as hard. Me and my dad always joke about it. We don't want to have and it's all respect to them because, that's my goat, like a Bronny kind of path, I want to have a way where I go get it myself, like he's not going to be the one putting in the work. He's not going to be the one watching the film, doing the practices for me. So that's one of those things where I've always had that chip on my shoulder where, yes, that's my dad, but I still put in the work too. I'm still doing all these extra things. I'm doing the extra work to put me over the top.
It's great. I mean, he can't make the team for you. Like that's the way that it works. There's no. What would it be like though if it were to end up being Baltimore? Right? Could you what that dynamic would be like? What it would mean to you to have that opportunity? Could you put that into words?
All I can say is that would be super lit. That would, I guess words don't do it justice. And if it's up to God that happens, then it's up to Him. But really, even whether it be in the bank in Baltimore or anywhere, I'd be blessed to be anywhere. So I
have no doubt that that's true. We're hoping it's not anywhere else in the AFC North. Let's just leave it. We'll leave it at that. Best thing that your dad ever taught you on the field, away from the field. Single best thing that you carry with you every day. Best thing he ever taught you.
It's actually a book he gave me when I was young. At first, when I was in high school, I'm not trying to read books. I'm like, Dad, hey, I'm not trying to read all that, And it's a book called "Don't Sweat the Small Stuff." And everything is small stuff. And that's one of those life books, right? And like it sounds very like, oh, okay, well, duh, the cover. But then when you read the book and it talks about stuff like that and has really like these niche lessons that you can take with you outside of football and inside of football too, about whether it be leadership, how to respond to criticism or how to grow as a person or grow as a player. Those things are really big and they're not really talked about. So I feel like that's really getting your mental on point, which can help get your physical on point. That's cool. I feel like one of the greatest things. And there are a lot of other things too. That's just one of the ones that stands out to me right now. But that one is up there. And then there's probably so many more. I'm like, if we want to talk pastors-wise, we'd probably be on here for like hours,
What about, walk me through, because like it blows me away whenever I talk to somebody that worked with your dad about the impact that he had on them. Did you have to growing up, I think a lot of times we roll our eyes about it. I see my kids doing it to me all the time, right? Like they just roll their eyes towards me. Was there a moment where you realized like how impactful he was on you, where you recognized the impact he was having on other people, and what that like what maybe I should be taking more from this? Did you go through any of that?
You know, growing up, I always knew my dad was super knowledgeable. He always used to hit me with the, I got a degree you don't right now. So immediately, he knows better. But seriously though, I always knew my dad knew his stuff. I was always listening. People would always be like, you gotta listen to your dad. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, hey, I'm all ears. So it's always been like that. But again. There was a point where if I noticed his influence more than just like taking the knowledge was when I was in maybe high school, and then you see all these other like pass rush trainers and stuff like that. They're doing kind of similar things I was doing when I was younger. Those were crazy, or that was a crazy thing to see. Then I remember we were at the Von Miller Pass Rush Summit, and all these guys, they were talking to him like players talk to Jordan in the NBA. I was like, yo, that's crazy, and that was like, ooh, aura.
That's cool, man. That's so cool. All right, you say you compete in everything. What do you always beat him at, and what does he always beat you at?
So he'll disagree with anything I'll say, but if we're talking about things that I beat him at, he swears he's good with technology. I always beat him in the game.
There you go.
I always, we used to compete in basketball, but he tore his hamstring. He kept trying to compete on that hamstring, but we had to call quits on that. That led to he had to be down on the IR for that one. Things he could really beat me at consistently: ping pong.
Okay.
Monopoly. He's more devious at Monopoly than me. He's willing to take them risks, and yeah, my brother's the same way. He's the same kind of shark in Monopoly. But yeah, anything he'll compete at, and he'll try and get good at. I remember when, like I mentioned earlier, the game, like we'll play college football. That one that just came out. I'll be playing, I bring my PS5 back to where we stay in Baltimore, and I'll go work out. I come back, he's on the practice mode. He's doing all the things. I see him playing. He's building his own custom playbook. I'm like, okay,
wow,
I gotta step my game up now. So hey, stayed up a little later, got right.
man, I think his success makes more sense to me now. Like,
yeah, he's a hard worker, and he's a real competitor.
That's cool, man. All right, and do you? I'm not trying to age you because you got a career in front of you. Do you, having watched him and the way that he's impacted people, do you start to think yourself like maybe that down the road, like coaching, that could be something that, like, perhaps could be something that you could find yourself doing one day?
Yeah, I feel like any player can really find themselves in coaching, but to be a good coach, that's where that level changes. So the things I've seen my dad do, transitioning from just straight training, because he coached in the past, but like going from training to coaching and how he interacts with his guys, and then how coaches have interacted with me over the time, I could see myself doing that, of course. But then to be able to give that information, like I talked about Dez earlier, to give that information to a 16, 17, 18, 19, however old the kid is, that's a whole different skill set. And to do that, I have to learn that from some of the best, being like Dez and my dad. I feel like anybody really, but I could definitely see myself doing that.
That's awesome, man. Chuck, it's at Chuck H. Smith, correct, on both Twitter and in Instagram as well. Give him a follow there, man. It would be an incredible story if it were to work out that way. It would be a really weird story if it works out with you in Gold and Black. It would just be really weird for all of us.
Make Thanksgiving awkward.
Yeah, but congratulations on everything you've done so far. Can't wait to see what's next for you. Chuck, thank you for taking the time for us this morning, man. We really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me on.
It's Chuck Smith. Really appreciate him taking the time. Chuck Smith the fourth, obviously. Appreciate him taking the time for us, and good to get to know him. And I don't know if he's going to be drafted or if he's going to be an undrafted free agent. It would seem like if he's an undrafted free agent, it would be pretty logical for him to be a Baltimore Raven. But we'll see how that plays out. And I appreciate that line that like they don't want it to be a LeBron Bronny thing where like we're just not going to lift you up if you didn't deserve it or you didn't earn it. Like you got to go out and earn it. And I don't think he says that to cast any shade. I don't think he's trying to get into a Stephen A. Smith rat beef.
Yeah, might as well.
With LeBron James, but I appreciate what he's saying there. Speaking of the NBA, did you see there was a report from The Athletic that it's so funny because remember yesterday you were trying to do the bit with Russ?
The coaching, coach killer.
But the story is that apparently the problem is
he
because he gave special treatment to Russ.
Oh, Malone did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is
wow.
kind of objectively hilarious in a few different ways. Like,
well, and then the people.
Why are you bending over for Russell Westbrook?
Right.
Like what? I know Russell Westbrook will go into the Hall of Fame. I understand all those things, but like we're beyond that part of his career. He's a guy. Why are you bending over for him? And certainly if it's going to piss off other players, why in the ever-loving F are you bending over for Russell Wilson? Right, they didn't say Russell Wilson. Well, I would say the same thing. Russell Westbrook, of course.
Could bend over for him, I guess. You know,
Lord, there's some similarities. And then I feel like there's something else. Oh, there's a story this morning from Jacob Calvin-Meyer in the Baltimore Sun that the Orioles are rolling Jim Palmer back from 81 games to 50 this season. I have not been able. I will just acknowledge openly, I am not a subscriber of the Baltimore Sun, so I became a banner guy. I don't. I've not been able to read the story to find out what details there are about the reason why. Because there's conflict here. Like one response is, well, Ben McDonald's great, right? Like I'm not gonna be mad about Ben McDonald. On the flip side, like this series in Arizona, considering where Jim Palmer lives, I would have always assumed that this would have been a Jim Palmer series. He's a West Coast guy, that this seems like the type of place we'd want Jim Palmer. If the answer is just we did a deal, Ben McDonald has been so good that we decided to do a deal where he would do more games and less college baseball or something like that. You're going to be hard to be angry about that, except you shouldn't be mistreating Jim Palmer. And as I've said, no matter how many people complain about Jim Palmer, like talking about himself, Jim Palmer can talk about himself until the day he dies. He is the greatest pitcher not only in Orioles history, he's one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history. And just because you're young and you don't know that isn't an excuse for the way that you talk about Jim Palmer sometimes. He's still very good on broadcasts. And what I've always appreciated about Jim Palmer is he was for years the one guy that, because he's Jim Palmer, was kind of allowed to say things that other guys weren't. He was able to tell it like it is a little bit more than other people. And looking at how the season is starting, might be beneficial to have someone a little bit more inclined to tell it like it is. And I'm not trying to take a shot at Ben or suggest that Ben, is gaslighting. The truth is the Orioles have been very good for the last couple of years, so he hasn't needed to gaslight. But Jim Palmer's in a unique place where he's Jim Palmer, so he could say things. Now, what I don't know is if, given Jim Palmer's age, perhaps the difficulty of travel is a factor into all this. I don't know enough of those details, and so it's hard for me to react to the totality of the story. I'm torn. I love Jim Palmer. We have been so fortunate to have had Jim Palmer continue to be. Players of that ilk don't usually spend the bulk of their lives choosing to continue to just be local broadcasters. There's not a whole lot of, among the greatest players in baseball history that are just local broadcasters. They don't need to. They can make money just doing autograph signings. They, obviously in future generations, those players made so much money during their career, they have no need to be involved. Smoltz, of course, does national broadcasts for Fox, but just doing local broadcasts. Don Sutton did Nationals games for a while. Burt Blyleven, I know, did some I don't know if Burt Blyleven, how long that continued. There's been a few. And even as great as Burt Blyleven was, he wasn't Jim Palmer. I'm trying to think of other. I think Chipper does some Braves stuff.
Does he?
think. But I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like a primary guy. I think he's more like he'll do a handful of games during the course of the year type of guy. And I think there are some that are like that, like Hall of Fame players that, like, yeah, I'll do a handful of games for you.
I don't know. It's weird that it just so happens to come out.
Jim Rice in Boston, Dennis Eckersley in Boston. Yeah, there's some.
I was talking to my friend yesterday who, he's not like a diehard baseball fan, but obviously started paying a lot more attention over the last couple of years, and he was just so disappointed about all this. And he's like, man, this is unwatchable. He's like, this is like the Wizards. Like it's unwatchable. And I was like, I mean, not necessarily quite yet.
The Wizards,
yeah, and I was like, and I made the point. I was like, I at the very least, I still really enjoy, as much as we complain about the Masson app and all the other things going on with Masson. The Masson broadcasts, I think, are very, very well done, and Kevin Brown, I think, is phenomenal. I think Ben, and I was talking, I feel like I love
those
Ben
guys are good,
Palmer,
and
like family members almost. Like they are.
Look, I've said this a million times.
Some of the best.
There's something about baseball broadcasters that are more unique than anyone else almost in broadcasting. They become part of your lives for a good part of the year. They do. Like that. It's why you like the continuity. You like the idea when a team says, like, we're going to rotate through 5 different broadcasts. You're like, I want my friends. I want the people that I like. To be fair, a lot of us were extremely disappointed when Gary Thorne was no longer going to be involved with the Orioles. I love Kevin Brown. My opinion is Kevin Brown is good. I don't know that he's Gary. I think a lot of people like him more than they like Gary Thorne. I don't. But that's not because of Kevin Brown. It's because of my reverence for Gary Thorne, right? Like, this isn't like a, Kevin Brown's only down. No, my reverence for Gary Thorne is so high that even though I like Kevin Brown a lot, it's still not quite what I liked about Gary Thorne. Having Gary and Jim together for years was a blessing. And I've told Bordy this. I thought when Bordy started doing games on Masson, he was not very good. But I thought he was tight, and he was afraid, and then as he did it for a few years, he got really comfortable, and then I really enjoyed Gary Thorne and Bordick together. I thought that was a good pairing in the booth for years. There's a little bit too much Maine for my liking when those guys were working together, but I get it. That was their connection. I do think that Kevin Brown and Ben, uniquely, that the two of them have there's a chemistry. People always ask why is it that you can't always define it, right? You can't. I don't know why Rita and I, for example, have had such great chemistry. People always talk about Drew and I's chemistry. I hate that. God, I hate that. Hate it. It drives me nuts. Hey, man, I can't help it. I just really love it when you and Drew are together. Son of a bitch. But I get it. For some reason, Drew and I clicked. We just did, right? When we started working together, it didn't take very long. It's different with everybody. Other people, I might not have the same chemistry with. I agree with you that Kevin and Ben have a really good chemistry together. That broadcast is really pleasant. I don't think it's unpleasant when Jim Palmer's there. I think I learn things when Jim Palmer does baseball games. And I don't like the idea of there being less Jim Palmer. Frankly, I think the three of them together, I know they only do it for the first series of the year, and then if there's a big series at the end of the year. But I think the three of them together have been great when they've done it.
Named our cat after Jim Palmer. Yeah.
You should name everything.
Yeah.
Jim Palmer is... Drew is a particular, I remember we did, back when radio mattered, we did one summer we called it the King of Baltimore Sports, because we had to come up with stuff. When the Orioles were bad, we had to do something else. And so every day for one summer, we did a bracket contest. Very clever, right? Nobody would have ever thought of that.
That's pretty good.
Where we took the 64 greatest Baltimore sports figures and pinned them against each other, and we did web voting, and we made all the hosts had to incorporate that day's bracket into their show and the whole thing. And it was funny because when it all started, I remember Drew and I were really involved in drawing the whole thing out. And it was going to end with this big party that we were doing at the Sports Legends Museum. And we were going to crown the King of Baltimore Sports. I remember Drew, we do this whole thing, and Drew just starts laughing, and he's like, This is like anymore. If you do something like this, and just a bunch of Maryland fans wanted to say, we're going to make Juan Dixon win this contest. You could, because like there's just not enough people involved. But this was back when like this was a real thing. And it got media coverage in other places, what we were doing, because this was just a different era of sports media. And we just had this conversation, and Drew said, I don't care what you say. I'll tell you who's going to win, and I'll tell you who should win. And I said, okay. He said, we could do this for 6 years. John Unitas is going to win this because he's John Unitas. But it should be Jim Palmer because the Orioles don't have anything without Jim Palmer. And ultimately, it came down to Unitas and Brooks, kind of as we all expected it to. And indeed, John Unitas won. And because Brooks is the greatest human being that ever lived, he came on to honor that he had lost to John Unitas. This is how great of a human being. Like, Brooke, the day of the party, I was doing Rob's show. Rob was doing afternoons at the time over on the old radio station, and I was doing Rob's show for him that day. I think maybe just so Rob could go to the party, like he wouldn't be late, like whatever it was. But I was hosting Rob's show, and like I was told the day before, hey, Brooks is going to call in at 5 o'clock because that's when we're going to be crowning the winner. It's like, oh, wow, Brooks won. And Ray Bogman was like, no. John Unitas won. And I said, oh? And he said, Brooks just wanted to come on anyway to talk about how great John Unitas was. And I said, sounds like something Brooks Robinson would want to do. And so sure enough, 5 o'clock the next day, Brooks Robinson we announced the winner at the party. Like I think the owner of the station called in, and like they did it at the party. They announced the winner was John Unitas and on the air. And then I said, all right, now joining us to talk about
Johnny Unitas,
how he lost.
The runner-up?
Yeah, it's Brooks Robinson. But it was great, right? But Drew swears by, like, that we do not in this city give enough respect to how all of this, how the era of greatness of the Orioles is centered around Jim Palmer. So, yeah, I don't know enough to fly off the handle. And again, if it means more Ben McDonald, then great. If it's not more Ben McDonald, right? Like if it means that it's more guest analysts, I like some of them. Sometimes it's nice to hear a different voice. Like once upon a time, that's how Ben McDonald got involved, right? Like
right.
Once upon a time, the Orioles just needed somebody to do a handful of games during the year, and Ben McDonald was one of the people that they called because he had been doing some college baseball, and then we all heard Ben McDonald. I remember Ben started on the radio, right? Like, and you heard him, and you were like, "Damn, Ben's really good at this." Like, I like Ben, but I didn't realize how good he was at this. When Greg Olson has filled in, I think he's done a good job. I thought Brad Brock was pretty. I really like Brian Roberts, but I think he's largely been dry when he's done broadcasts. You know, it might be something he can continue to grow into, but I've always kind of thought he was a little too cut and dry when he would do games. But maybe there's somebody new. Maybe, ask the Blue Jays if you can borrow Caleb Joseph for a few games, who's been great
this weekend.
Yeah, I mean maybe not this weekend. I don't know. I don't know what their plan is, but I don't like the idea. If it's something that Jim Palmer isn't on board with, then I don't like it. Because Jim Palmer deserves everything that Jim Palmer wants. And he is not – he's still sharp. It's one thing if, like, we all were watching and we're like, yeah, it's that's not the case. He is still very good at this. So, conflicting emotions is all I could say. We'll come back in. We'll do the fighting words.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I know you're excited about that.
Yeah, that, John, we're going 3 hours today.
Not doing that. Tidbit and two to wrap it up. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
What makes the Costas Inn so special? This is Stan the Fan telling you that it's the people that work for you, cooking and serving. But that menu is also special with a capital S. Soups, salads, the raw bar, pasta dishes, seafood specialties, and entrees like the Costas combos, steaks, chops, ribs, amazingly delicious meatloaf, and all manner of delicious filling sandwiches including pit beef and turkey and subs. Of course, the steamed crabs are as good as you can get anywhere, and they serve them 12 months a year. The crab cakes are out of this world. Costas is open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and coming soon, very soon, Costas in Timonium at the OTB Parlor at Timonium Racecourse. We'll get you the opening date real soon.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Glenn Clark and I sit down for a Q&A with Orioles owner David Rubenstein, discussing what he learned from his first year as owner, his goals both on and off the field, and his involvement in baseball decisions. Also inside, Brooks DeBose profiles new Oriole Tyler O'Neill, and we meet college lacrosse players from around the state. Press Box is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue online at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
Good tweet, Nathan Ruiz. Good tweet. Of course, he used to cover the Orioles. He retweeted the Jacob Calvin-Meyer story and said, Palmer is calling 31 fewer games because he actually will be starting them instead.
There we go. Yep. Take it.
Good tweet,
It
man.
definitely felt like, Kevin Brown was right on the edge of asking Ben that yesterday. Like,
Right.
Yeah, just like, how you feel?
Yeah, could you maybe?
Because they were doing, was that yesterday or was it Tuesday where they were like, on this day in baseball or in Orioles history, and it was the shutout, Ben shutout the third game in Camden Yards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it felt like, he didn't say it, but it felt like he was like, and how's your arm feel?
Yep, I totally get it. All right, it is a Thursday, and on Thursdays we do this.
It's Fighting Words with Griffin Bass.
Fighting Words is brought to you by the Stan the Fan Variety Hour. If you missed Stan, Ross, and Luke earlier this week talking baseball, you can find it right now. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video. It's all brought to you by the Costas Inn. Doing it every Monday all season long. What you got?
It is UFC 314 weekend. They're down in Miami. It's going to be Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, and it's a pretty great card. They should. I think this is the Godfather Part 3 card. This is the just when I thought it was out, they pulled me back in. This is like last week's card was horrendous. It was nothing happened. It was very, very boring. They're in the Apex. It felt like the last couple weeks have been a little dry. You always feel that way coming out of an Apex card. So this is a tremendous card, probably going to be up there for one of the best cards of the year, just on paper.
All right.
It's what does Sheamus say? It's banger after banger.
Banger after banger.
Yeah.
Is Sheamus fighting?
No, Sheamus won't be fighting. Maybe you're
I don't think he's fighting at WrestleMania either.
Really, he's not. What happened?
Sheamus is just kind of not around.
He's just
more
of a.
I guess he's hurt maybe, or he's just reached that part of his career.
But yeah, so Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. This will be for the. I guess is this an interim, or I guess this is going to be an undisputed featherweight? Just because I guess because Topuria is technically vacating the featherweight title because he's going to be fighting Islam. July coming up this summer.
Okay.
Topuria and Islam Makhachev will fight at 155. So this is the 145. It's Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, and I mean I don't know. You can't say a bad thing about either of these guys. Obviously Volkanovski is Probably he is a Mount Rushmore featherweight guy, just how long his run was. And it's weird now. I mean, he's coming off of, he's lost 3 of his last 4 coming into this one now. But the thing is, I mean, you look at the guys he's lost to Islam Makhachev twice, and he's lost to Ilia Topuria. And, pound for pound, those are probably 1 and 2 on the list right now. So he comes in, he's a slight favorite over Diego Lopez, who is had a pretty meteoric rise over the last 2 years. I mentioned every time he fights that I saw his first UFC fight down up in Newark.
He still talks about that.
I do.
He does.
Diego does?
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
He's like, it was so great that Griffin was there to support me.
I mean, so he took the fight. He took that fight on a week's notice against Movsar Evloev, who has still not sniffed a title challenge or a title shot yet. Evloev was a massive favorite. He ended up winning, but Lopez had him like on either armbarred him or he had him in a knee bar like in the first round, and it was like, oh my God, is this guy that literally came out of nowhere? This guy lost on the Contender Series a couple of years ago, Diego Lopez. So it was going to be a crazy upset. He ends up losing, but since then he's won 5-6 in a row. Of course, last summer was when Dan Ige stepped in on 3 hours' notice to fight Diego Lopez to save the fights because he was supposed to fight Brian Ortega. Dan Ige fights on this card as well, so that's always exciting. When Dan Ige fights, he's got a full, he's got more than 2 hours to prepare.
Did I see that Jim Miller is fighting on this card?
Hell yeah, Jim Miller's fighting on this card.
How are we still doing that?
Because he's the best. He's Jim because he lives up to his nickname. I almost said it. Jim effing Miller is fighting on this card. I guess we can jump back to the prelim because it's a great preliminary card as well.
Yeah, you got to go quick.
All right, Danny Ige fights. You got Verna Jandaroba and Yan Xiaonan at women's strawweight. Who one of those two? I mean, if Verna wins it, she should probably get a shot at the strawweight title. But then you got Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper, and then the first prelim is Darren Elkins versus Julian Rosa. And Darren Elkins is another guy who he should probably be. His nickname should be Darren Effin Elkins because he is he is one of the most exciting guys. He's a guy who has like so much scar tissue on his face. He just gets jabbed once or twice and starts bleeding, but he never gets fit. Like he goes to the end every single time, and he is a worth the price of admission kind of guy. Right. He's a plus 270 dog. There are much worse ways to waste your money. I'm going to I'll go ahead and give it out. Darren Elkins at plus 270 against Julian Rosa is that's
a little live.
Yeah, I think so. I love Darren Elkins as that one. So if you want to, and if you're feeling real frisky, go ahead and just parlay Jim Miller and Darren Elkins, and then you'll be set for the next the next couple weeks. I think. Jim Miller's got a much more tougher uphill battle against Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper still a very young guy. Who burst onto the UFC. I think he was 19 when he fought in the Contender Series, and then he's in like 20 when he had his first UFC fight. He's 25 now, and he's much more like grown into his physique. He's very good. It'll be very tough for Jim Miller to try and knock off Chase Hooper, but it's Jim Effin Miller, so I'm not gonna ever say he has no chance. Darren Elkins I think has a much better chance to beat Julian Rosa. So those are the first 2 prelim fights. It should be a really good prelim card. And then elsewhere on the main card, Michael Chandler fights. Of course, Michael Chandler, one of the best, one of the most entertaining guys in the entire promotion. He fought Charles Oliveira last time out, and I mean he just hung in there the whole time. Michael Chandler's one of the best. Another Bellator guy, Patricio Pitbull, makes his UFC debut, so he will be fighting Yair Rodriguez at featherweights. Patricio Pitbull and Michael Chandler, probably the 2 best homegrown Bellator prospects ever, because they spent most of their careers in Bellator. Unfortunately, with Patricio Pitbull, he's coming in as an underdog, and it's probably UFC probably just got him a little bit too late. But you do have Pitbull versus Yair Rodriguez. That should be a great fight. And then I think maybe the biggest one in terms of outside draw is Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. So Bryce Mitchell's the dummy who thinks the world is flat.
Oh, that's that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
But he's fighting Gene Silva. And Gene Silva's going to be everyone's favorite after this fight because, well, obviously he's going to beat Bryce Mitchell. He's also one of the fighting nerds. So he's
you told us about the fighting nerds, right?
Yeah, so he's going to have the glasses and assuming he's going to have to win, obviously, but Bryce Mitchell is because it's such a weird fall from grace that he came up as kind of just like a weird guy, like this guy that lives out in Arkansas.
Okay.
and is very religious, and everybody like kind of liked him because he had a twister submission, he one of the few twister submissions in UFC history. Almost had a second twister submission, and wanted camo shorts. And everybody was like, "Yeah, this is cool. This is cool." And then he got a podcast, and people heard from him more. And
the more you knew, the more you said,
yeah. So I think hopefully it looks a lot like his last fight, 2 fights ago, when he fought Josh Emmett, and Josh Emmett knocked him out in the first round.
But I just realized how much I hate this. That's the reason why he's on the main card. Because he got the attention.
He's earned, like, he is not looked good in his last 2 fights. I mean, he knocked out Kron Gracie in his last fight, but that's Kron Gracie, and I think that was Kron Gracie's first fight in like 4 or 5 years. It's a win, so you can give him that. So he's coming off a win, you can at least say that. But I'm not trusting Bryce Mitchell here. And based on what we've seen from Gene Silva over the last 18 months, and from this team, the Fighting Nerds, there's no reason. I don't see Bryce Mitchell somehow being the guy that's derailed all the momentum that the Fighting Nerds have, and all the momentum that Gene Silva has. So I like that as well. He is knockout plus 115, I think.
Okay.
So if you take Gene Silva plus at knockout plus 115, I think that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good bet. I like that one. So Gene Silva over Bryce Mitchell. Dominic Reyes fights on the main card as well. He fights Nikita Krylov. That should be a fun fight. And then the top 2 fights it doesn't get much better. Michael Chandler versus Paddy the Baddy. So this is so that'll be really fun. Michael Chandler's an underdog. I think you have to go with Michael Chandler again. I mean, this is it's pretty crazy because Paddy the Baddy now is he's no longer a gimmick at this point. Like if he's a favorite going against Michael Chandler, and if he's able to beat Michael Chandler, then he is up there in that upper echelon of these 155ers. Like he's right up there next to Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira. Like that's likely his next fight if he finds a way to get by Michael Chandler. So this is a massive test for Paddy Pimblett. And he's the favorite. He's minus 150 to beat Michael Chandler. I don't like betting anyone against Michael Chandler. So I don't feel crazy confident in that, but the odds are what the odds are, and I'm really looking forward to that one. I believe, it's a 5-rounder. It's a 5-round co-main event with Michael Chandler and Paddy the Baddy. So it's just a really great card. I can't wait for this one. This is the one. This is where the UFC kind of reminds you what they're capable of doing when they put some effort into the product. So I'm looking forward to this weekend at UFC 314. Should be a good one, and then they're gonna hopefully keep the momentum going because it's not an Apex card the week after either. They're gonna be in Kansas City. They'll have a live crowd, so should be, and another Fighting Nerds guy headlining in Kansas City next week. So
all right. You're trying to sell me.
I'm excited about it. There's PFL Friday night. There's not a whole lot going on boxing. We talked about it last week. There's for whatever reason April is kind of a 0 month for boxing. Just so happens the news I think this week so Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, they confirmed will be fighting in MSG in July, and it's going to be an all-women's boxing card. So they're going to be making some history in that sense.
Okay.
It's going to be all women on the card, up and down, with Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor at the very top. So that's cool. The kind of boxing news of the week. But everything's been UFC 314 focused. It's a pretty legit card down in Miami. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it a lot.
Very good. That's fighting words for this week. Appreciate that. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by the print issue of Pressbox. Final couple of days for this one with David Rubenstein on the cover, and then it is gone. So get it now or forever hold your pee. Neighborhood Royal Farms, any of those hundreds of locations around towns where you find Pressbox. Read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. And then next week, we will have a new baseball-themed issue of Pressbox hitting newsstands for you. Normally, I let Stan be the one to announce it, but he's not going to be here tomorrow, is he? So maybe I'll just do it myself. Look at that. Scoop everybody what the cover story will be for the next print issue of Pressbox. What you got for tidbits?
So earlier this week, a Detroit Piston became just the 5th player ever to knock down 300 made three-pointers in a season.
A Detroit Piston.
Yeah. So go ahead. So can you name all 5? So 5 guys ever have made 300 threes in a season.
500 guys. I would assume Steph.
NBA season. Yeah, Steph, he's the only guy to do it multiple times. He's done it 6 times in his career. And the only guy to ever do it twice is Steph Curry.
I mean, is it Cunningham?
No, it's not Cade Cunningham.
Is it Jade Ivey?
Nope.
Jaden Ivey?
not Jaden Ivey.
Is it? Who the hell else is on the Pistons?
Yeah, exactly. When I saw this stat, I was like, what? Like, everyone else on this list makes sense, and then you're like, this guy? And maybe, it's just the... This is year. I'm trying to figure out what year in the NBA this is for him. Let's see. He was a first-round pick by the Nuggets back in 2016.
I don't think
that's going to help you at all.
Nuggets in 2016. And he's made
so he spent
300 threes.
This season.
I don't know.
Spent his first 5 seasons with Denver. Spent 3 seasons with Minnesota. 2 seasons with the Jazz. A year with the Lakers. He was with the Bucks last season, and then this season, Detroit. And made 300.
I got nothing.
3-pointers this season.
I got absolutely nothing. All right, who is it?
It is Malik Beasley.
Malik, it barely registers with me at all.
Yeah, Malik Beasley out of Florida State made 300 threes this season, became the 5th NBA player in history to make 300 threes in a season.
All right, the others.
Got Steph.
Ray Allen.
No, Ray Allen did not do that.
How about Clay?
Clay did this once.
Reggie Miller.
No Reggie.
I guess it's really got to be more modern.
Both guys are still last 2 remaining ones. Are both
Harden.
James Harden, yes.
How about Buddy?
No. Buddy Hield, is that here? I'm guessing not Buddy Hield.
Trae Young?
Not Trae Young.
Oh, Dame.
Nope.
Okay. Man. All right, give me something. Is it a star?
Yeah.
It's a star.
Yeah. I was like, what can I say here?
It's not Devin Booker.
It's not Devin Booker.
It's not. I'm trying to think of
Luka. Not Luka.
Will be in the playoffs. It's not SGA. Ant?
Yep, Anthony Edwards.
Really?
Made 301. I don't know why I can't find the. I want to find the exact year, but they're just giving me his average 3-pointers made per season. I'm guessing maybe it was this year. Maybe it was this year.
Did not know.
But yeah, so Malik Beasley joins that illustrious group of Anthony Edwards, Klay Thompson, James Harden, and Steph Curry.
I mean,
best 3-point shooters ever.
Very strange. Anthony Edwards. Yeah, it appears to be this year.
Okay, good for him then. Yeah, so he just joined that list as well. So I guess we'll continue to see guys joining this list.
I guess. All right, very good. Let's get tubular.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
Before this year, Ant had never made more than 215 threes in a season, and that was 3 years ago. So, big jump up for Anthony Edwards this year.
They moved the line in. They didn't tell us.
305, and shooting much better. He had shot. He's a career 364 3-point shooter. This year, 394.
Wow,
nearly 40%.
Wow,
really wild. All right, very good. Here's what's coming up, totally tubular-wise. Of course, the Masters, but you're not really allowed to watch the Masters. It's part of why I don't like the Masters, is this
what do you mean you're not really?
cockamamie nonsense. But it's not really the broadcast. It's just you're allowed to watch. You're not allowed to watch a golf tournament. You're just allowed to watch, a hole. Like, whoever's playing at that hole, you can watch that. Or whatever this group does, you can watch
different
that.
Websites to watch holes.
These 3 holes you can watch on ESPN. These 3 holes you can watch on Paramount. These 3 holes you can watch on. It's bull s. The Masters. You can actually watch the golf tournament starting at 3 on ESPN, but right now,
find a legit leaderboard either.
I'm pretty sure you can find a leaderboard.
Well, normally Google will just do it for you, but it's
Right now, Aaron Ray or Rye is 4 under par, and Steven Yeager or Jager is also 4 under par.
Okay, mine says Aaron Ray is -3 and Yeager is -4.
What do you have him? How many holes do you have him through?
Yeager's through 10. Rye is through.
I've got Rye. Oh, okay. So you're a hole in front of me then. I
so
guess
he
you
bogeys the
gave
next-
one back.
So Ray.
I
bogeys
should have
the next
bet it.
hole.
Damn.
Oh, here it is. This is him bogeying now.
I don't know who this is.
Was that Bubba Watson who was in the
Maybe.
all-red?
Scotty Scheffler is at 2 under, so appears to be in the mix. But yeah, the Masters continues tonight on Big Ten Network. Johns Hopkins, Ohio State women at 6 o'clock. Baseball today, White Sox Guardians 1:10, Blue Jays Red Sox 4:10, and Phillies Braves 7:15 on MLB Network. The free game on MLB TV is Angels Rays at 1:10. Hurricanes Capitals 7:30 on ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus, as well as Monumental Network. So just about everywhere.
Well, they think he was going to break the record tonight?
Hurricanes. Probably. Ducks Kings 10 o'clock on ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus. The NCAA Frozen Four is tonight. Who you got?
I'll take UConn.
They are not in it.
What?
Who do you got?
Did they lose to Penn State? I'll take Penn State then.
Penn State is
the winner
in.
of that UConn-Penn State game from last weekend.
I didn't know that's who it played.
Went to overtime.
Denver, Western Michigan at 5, and then Penn State, BU at 8:30 on ESPN.
I'll take the nitty lines.
TNT and True TV for Cavaliers, Pacers at 7. Timberwolves, Grizzlies at 9:30. Access TV for TNA Impact tonight at 8. Non-sports.
Hack Season 4 out on HBO Max.
Is it really?
Yep, HBO Max. Tonight.
Awesome.
Tonight at 9 on HBO Max. So you have to wait. Yeah, you gotta wait. Sorry.
Man.
Also, the season 1 finale of The Pit on HBO Max today, or
Okay.
Max. Sorry. Season 6 finale of the Kardashians on Hulu. So we can. That one's available now, so we can watch that one.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah.
I spent some time with that.
Black Mirror season 7 is out on Netflix, and then on Prime Video because Amanda Peet and Viola Davis will be on Seth Meyers.
That they're plugging actually Kobe Smulders. I know it's weird, but Amanda Peet looks exactly like Kobe Smulders, and it was a whole thing on this show for a little while. And stupid Kyle was just like, I don't think they look alike. Like, brother, they couldn't look more like. They're the exact same person.
Maybe just because we're used to Kobe Smulders more since she's.
Oh, then you're
been
from
in
a
Marvel
different.
stuff.
Amanda Peet had a legendary run. Oh,
okay.
Amanda Peet. Saving Silverman's one of the greatest motion pictures ever made. Is that on your list?
No.
Nope, that's next. Saving Silverman is the next film for you to watch for a movie review. And I would like for you to do it quickly.
All right.
Because Saving Silverman is perfection. Should have done it when Arlie Ermy passed away. Saving Silverman is everything that you could ask for in a motion picture. You hate her. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Viola Davis is on Seth Meyers because she is in a new movie on Prime Video called G20. And so she plays the presidents of the United States, and so she invites all the world leaders to G20, the G20 summit.
Sure.
Yes. And it's like in South Africa, I think. And so she just goes diehard, and she tries to take out all the terrorists herself and save not only her family but the world. She's married to Anthony Anderson, and I think he's the first gentleman.
Okay. Well, sure.
That's on Prime Video if anyone's interested.
All right.
That's and those are the big ones. Christina Ricci and Mark Duplass will be on Kimmel.
Oh, it's not okay. Sorry. Hopefully, promoting a new season of the league.
Yeah, I wish.
I'd be in favor of that.
He's married to Ellen Pompeo in that Good American Family show on Hulu.
Okay.
That's the dwarf girl.
His brother was in Dying for Sex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, his brother Jay Duplass was in Dying for Sex. He was the ex-husband. He was the one that she. Dying for Sex is a weird premise, right? Because
he's the one that she's dying for sex for, or
no, she
didn't get sex. She didn't get good sex.
Right,
from him.
correct. Okay. She leaves him because she had cancer. He was like no longer sexually attracted to her.
Wow.
In the show, the podcast that it's based off of.
Apparently, it's not true.
It's a little bit murkier as to like.
Oh, they did separate, but we don't know.
Yeah, it comes off more like the podcast is based on. It was more just like she wanted to hump a lot of people because she was going to die, and like if it's so, God bless you, you get that choice. But it's a little bit less.
Hump a lot of people.
Like I think I finished Dying for Sex. Good show. Good show. Pun intended. I can't figure out whether I think it's an inspiring story or not, right? Like, I can't figure that part out.
So it just kind of happened.
It kind of happened. It's really like I think some of the stuff they do related to death is really compelling. Like, really, really compelling how they show her dying. But the other part, like, I don't know. There's just a lot there that I'm like.
So it gets the Glenn Clark.
Yeah, watch.
Thumb sideways.
No, I mean, like, I would say 3/4 of the way up.
That doesn't look 3/4.
Whatever that is, 3/4.
Like 5.
No, hang on a second. That's 3/4.
Like
no,
3/5 of the way up.
That's 3/4.
Well,
Calm
that
down.
might be, but before you were like.
No, that's where I was.
You were like.
It's 3/4 of the way up. It's definitely worth watching. Michelle Williams is excellent. I've said before how much I love Jenny Slate. I think she's brilliant. And then, who's the lady that used to write for SNL that was on Girls 5 Eva? Paul Pell, I think is her name.
Okay.
She ends up, but she doesn't show up on the show until a little bit later. And Paula Pell. She's wonderful in like a very small role. As a nurse. There's a lot to like about the show. I just don't know if it's that the protagonist. I'm confused. I have some confusion about the protagonist.
Ooh, Aaron Ray just bogeyed again.
Oh no, it's over. God,
Look at him.
Is that Aaron Ray?
Wait, no, he was the guy before they were showing.
I
That's
have no
Zalatoris,
idea.
I think.
With my life on the line, I wouldn't know.
That's
who
Willie
Aaron
Z.
Ray is. That's Will Zalatoris.
Yeah.
With my life on the line, I wouldn't know what he
Those
looks
are
like.
tough
either.
shots. Well, I know because I looked up before and I was like, oh, he's in that nice little pink.
How about that? Very good for him. All right.
Oh, Will.
Anything else?
Fallon's got John Hamm and Patrick Schwarzenegger.
John Hamm and Patrick Schwarzenegger. They are, of course, plugging the league. That's what they're. Yeah.
10 years too
Just
late.
big fans. You guys ever watch that show? It was great.
So John Hamm's hosting SNL,
Yes.
and then he's got a show. I don't know if he's hosting SNL because of this Apple TV show, but he is in Your Friends and Neighbors, where on Apple TV tomorrow is when it premieres. And Don Draper has fell in hard times here.
Oh.
Yeah. He's so he is a disgraced hedge fund manager.
Oh, no.
And he loses his job, he loses his family, he loses his wife.
Oh.
And so he resorts to stealing from all his rich friends
I was about
and
to say,
families.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great comedy.
Well, it's John Hamm, so yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be true comedy. But
Yeah,
there's
you're thinking maybe it
I
might
think
not
there'll
be.
some moments.
Okay. That it?
Yeah. That's
Very
it.
good.
That is
Thanks today to Chuck Smith IV. Thanks also to Jeff Chadiha. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Can You Take Me Higher?
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow, as I mentioned, Stan is not in tomorrow. We are going to make our first trip to Bowie to chat with a member of the Chesapeake Bay Sox, to chat with Creed Willems.
Yes, Creed will join us.
And Stuff and Things.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Stuff and Things. Thanks to everybody at PressBox. All of our great
Ready for this
sponsors.
exciting Blue Jays series.
Yeah. All of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Baltimore's Classic 5 Golf Courses, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, The Costas Inn, Maryland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Thursday evening. Go Hopkins women. Duke sucks.